Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you to the study session for the Jordan School District Board of Education. All those groaning and cheering that you hear, those are the sighs and the cheers of all those children realizing that their summer vacation is coming to an end and school starts soon. We are excited to welcome them back. We're excited to welcome new teachers to Jordan School District. We are excited to welcome you all to this study session of the board. My name is Bryce Dunford, and I have been asked by our president, Nikki George, to conduct this session. She is joining us electronically. You'll hear her voice once in a while, but didn't feel like she could conduct the meeting and has asked me to do so. All of the board members are present today, as well as our outstanding superintendent, our associate superintendent, our business administrator, several members of our staff, and our legal counsel. Today is August 11th, and we are gathered at the Jordan Academy for Technology and Careers South Campus. We have a wonderful study session ahead. We look forward to all that staff is here to present and decisions made by board members. We're going to begin with a presentation from Mr. Richard Collada, who is the CEO of International Society for Technology and Education, as well as the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. He presented to our teachers and staff earlier in the day, and he has come graciously, we appreciate it, to speak to the board. We consider him an expert in the field with much to say. Board members, this is pretty much an information-only item. This is for your benefit. We do not anticipate taking any action on this. It may lead to a proposed future action if that's something you would like to propose. So sit back, enjoy the presentation, ask any questions that you like, but no action is anticipated on this item. Mr. Collada, thank you for joining us in Jordan School District. We appreciate your expertise. Tell us what we don't know and we need to know.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. I will just make one modification to that. I have a very short, maybe a summary of some of the things that we talked about today, and then I hope we can just have this be a conversation, and you can ask questions you want, and we'll talk about it. So you don't get to totally sit back, but I do look forward to talking with you a bit. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Just a quick bit about my background that you don't get in the bio. So I live in Northern Virginia area, right outside of Washington D.C. I've been there since I've been working in the U.S. Senate, and then I worked for the White House, and now I lead a nonprofit organization there. But I graduated from BYU. My first teaching job was at Timpview High School, just down the road, teaching Spanish there. And I have a kiddo at BYU, a kiddo at UVU, and then just to keep Jared happy, we're going to go do a tour at U of U for my youngest kiddo. So a lot of it's always a pleasure to be able to be here in Utah. The organizations that I lead. How many of you are familiar with ISTE or ASCD? Are those organizations you've heard of before? You are, yes, I know that. And there's so we have these two organizations. One was ISTE, which was the International Society for Technology and Education, really thinking about the future of learning and how do we use technology to support learning. And then the other was this organization called ASCD, which is really the organization that focused on instructional leader training, right? Development. So developing superintendents, principals, but on the instructional side. If you need help with planning budgets or dealing with transportation issues and all the other things that you have to deal with, we don't help you with that. But if it's about how to make sure you're leading high quality instructional experiences, that's what ASCD did. We just felt that in this post-COVID world that we're in, having these two separate organizations with membership bases that were sort of separate wasn't serving anybody, wasn't serving kids well, wasn't serving anybody well. So the boards elected to merge the two associations. They, in a moment of lack of judgment, decided that I should be the CEO of the new combined organization. And we have just renamed the organizations to be the International Society for Transforming Education. So we'll still use the ISTE logo, the ISTE acronym, but the International Society for Transforming Education, I think, really captures the goal that both organizations always had. So that's a little bit about what we do. We work in all states, every state in the U.S. We have certification programs for leaders, school leaders, in instructional leadership, in technology for instructional purposes. We work in about 80 countries around the world as well. and we host some pretty amazing events. Some of you have been to. I hope you'll all have a chance to come to one of our events. We bring about 20,000 education leaders together every year. We're the largest nonprofit organization, that not counting unions. We're the largest nonprofit organization focused on education and innovation in education, certainly. So that's it. Close parentheses on who we are. Oh, one final thing that I do need to mention in case you're not aware. We do a bit of a program every year where we identify what we call a distinguished district. This is a district that is really making thoughtful decisions about teaching and learning in ways that we really admire and want to spotlight. And so last year, you may know that Jordan District was one of our distinguished districts, and we had the opportunity to highlight the great work that you all do here, and that's from thousands of schools that apply for that. So that's a great thing. Today, I had an opportunity to meet with many of your teachers and leaders. So impressed with them. We talked about some of the energy, I think it's fair to say some energy that is around when it comes to technology and learning. Maybe you've heard about this, especially when it comes to how much and where and when and how technology should be used. And we talked a bit about that. Unfortunately, the conversations, I think in many spaces, but in education, we very quickly go to extremes on particular topics. And in this case in particular, we have these sort of extremes that we've gone to. There's people that are saying, just ban all technology. We need to ban it because, if we just ban technology, everything will be great again, right? That'll solve all the problems. And then on the other side, we have people that say it's all good. We have no problems. We're doing everything right with technology, certainly in schools. And why do we need? Those are kind of the rose-colored glasses people. And the reality is of course somewhere in a more nuanced conversation in between, which is that we know that we need to be using technology in really meaningful ways in order to support kids to thrive in this world they're going to be walking into. Kids that go through school that don't learn the deeper skills of using technology to support learning are going to be really in tough shape when they walk into a job market when they graduate. This isn't something you can learn quickly over the summer when you're after you graduate. These are deeper skills about how do we be effective humans in a digital world, and that has to be practiced. And so that's really, really key. And on the other hand, I think we can agree that there's been, especially after COVID, a fair amount of use of technology that wasn't really supporting learning goals as best as we wanted to. Some distractions that we've seen, and so needing to be more thoughtful about how to do that. The one last thing that I'll share, and then we'll just open it up to talk about whatever you would like. This is particularly important to note as we think about the role of AI, and I think largely we've gotten AI wrong in how we're thinking about it in schools. Most schools that we work with, again, we work with schools all around the country, all around the world, are thinking about AI as a tool. And they're focusing on learning it as a tool, right? What do we learn about? There have been these AI literacy initiatives that have largely been focused on what is AI? How does it work? What does it do? What's an LLM, right? What are the, and I'm not sure that's the skills that we need to prepare our students to be successful in this world. I was at an event the other day at a school, and the person before me got up. I think they had been maybe the CS teacher, and now were put in this role of being over AI. I think they were very excited to that finally everybody needed to care about this, the inner workings of the technology, right? That was so near and dear to this person's heart. And he said we all need to learn. Every student needs to know what AI is and how it works and how all the technical components of it. And it was a little awkward because I followed and I said, I'm not sure I agree with that. Certainly some may, but I actually did this. I'll tell you what I did. I pulled out my phone and I said, how many of you can explain to me the data telemetry that happens on your phone, what geolocates based on 3 or more cell phone towers and then calculates your location in there based on that, changes the experience that you get, right, based on your geolocation. That drives a whole bunch of things that you do. How many of you could explain how that works? Probably not many of you. Somebody might be able to. Probably not many of you. How many of you think we really need to know how that works in order to be successful in this world? Probably not many of you, right? But how many of you think we need to know how to use this tool in a way that brings meaning into our life, that helps make our life better, that helps us be better humans? I think we would all agree that we need to, and frankly, we probably need some work on that as a society in general. And I think that's a lesson that we need to learn when we think about AI. I would far rather focus on what are uniquely human skills. Skills like being a learner, a connector, a storyteller, a problem solver, a brainstormer, right? These uniquely human skills. And how do we practice using AI to help us be better at being human? That's what we need to be teaching. We recently released a framework called the Profile of an AI-Ready Graduate. Profile, it's 6 skills, 6 uniquely human skills, and then a handful, I think a total of about 36 skills under all of those, of ways to model and practice using AI to help show what it's like to do human skills better. And somebody today said, well, wait a minute, we're not using AI with our students. I said, that's totally fine. But they still need to see that modeled. And so they need to see you as a teacher get up and say, hey, here's an interesting situation where it would be helpful to have some different ideas to throw into the mix here. Let's ask AI to be a brainstorm partner with us. Let's ask it to share 4 or 5 other possibilities that then we can evaluate. So see how they just modeled using AI as a brainstorming tool to help us as humans do our uniquely human skill of being a problem solver. Right? And you could go down a whole bunch of other examples like that. And so we make that available. And I'll say one more thing is that school districts, we've just released this recently, but we had a couple partner districts around the country that worked with us on this profile. And it's been interesting to see the shift that's happened when they've started, particularly with parents. When you say to parents, our focus on AI in this district is to help your kid be better at being human. That gets buy-in. That when it says we need every kid to learn what an LLM is in a RAG and how do you manipulate the data set from that, you're like, oh, okay, right? But like when we know that we care about human skills first, it gets buy-in and it prepares them for the jobs that they're going to be needing to do in the future. So I'll stop there. I'd love to hear any thoughts you have. One thing that I will actually share quickly, just because it's sitting right in front of you all. This is a document that our research team recently produced, if it's useful. It came because we had a lot of... there's been, a lot of energy around the role of technology, and we've had some leaders say, we have people that sometimes say, well, there's no evidence that technology is making a difference in learning, which was, just to be clear, is absolutely not true, right? There's thousands and thousands of credible peer-reviewed studies that show significant impact when technology is used appropriately, right? Age appropriate, aligned to learning. That's consistent. So yes, if you're using technology in ways that are not age appropriate and not aligned to learning, you will not see a significant difference. When you look at how technology is used in appropriate ways, you see significant impact, particularly among the most needy populations. English learners, students with IEP, special needs, students in rural areas, right? You see some of these shifts. So what we had our team do, we have a research team, and we had them go through and summarize basically about 1,000 of these top research studies, and gave a summary here, completely, they're all cited, of essentially what the research says. And we have some common Q&As, right? Is ed tech harming our students? Does banning ed tech harm students with disabilities? Here's one of my favorites is, we've seen test scores go down. Is that from the use of technology in schools? And the research does not confirm that. There's a very interesting causation versus correlation issue if you look at the research on that. So a lot of good, useful research in there. We are very intentional here. This does not, there isn't a conclusion that we make. It doesn't say, so therefore you should ... It's just a compilation of some of the top credible research in case it's helpful to make the conversation a little more meaningful. Okay. There, promise, I'm done with my opening rant that I said was going to be brief, that was longer than I intended it to be. But I'd love to open it up to any questions that you have, anything that you're thinking about, struggling with, stuff you want to know. Don't be shy about the tough questions. I love tough questions, so anything that is on your mind, please let me know.
Lisa?
Thank you for being here. I would love to have this information with links to the studies at the end. So the one that I read on my agenda on board books, I thought that since it was blue, it would link to the studies.
It should,
but
does it not?
Mine did not.
We will get you a version that does.
So
it must have somehow in the save that must have gone awry, but we can get you one with the citations, absolutely.
Thank you.
What else?
Erin?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I really liked this document. I loved, I was able to go and listen to you this morning at this morning's session, and that was really really helpful, I feel like. One of the topics was talking about, let me see, the quality of the tech use matters more than its quantity, and the type of tech, like ed tech, that's being used. I was curious if you had examples of effective ed tech that other districts are using. Maybe there's something that we're currently using that I don't know about, but.
Sure. So let's first talk about that concept, this idea of the way I simplify it. You can see the title on here is my phrase that they used on the title here, which is screen value is more important than screen time. So if you look consistently at the research, what you see is it's actually not about screen time. There's no credible research that backs up the idea of screen time. The research says it's the value of the activity that matters. And so you could have some activities that are highly valuable, highly aligned to learning, very encouraging creativity and curiosity. And as long as they're age appropriate, using them for a longer amount of time makes total sense and is very valuable. You could have some activities where 0 minutes is too much, right? Like it's because it's not a useful activity. And so these districts and places that have gotten hooked into this time limit piece can be really tricky. I was just visiting our friends out in Los Angeles and LA, and they just did I think what is probably the example of some of the worst regulations that a district has ever done, where they just had the parents vote on how many minutes of screen time should be allowed in a given day, and they just kind of voted. 20 minutes in third grade or whatever, right? And what was interesting is, and I actually got a copy. I happened to be on their list somehow because I guess I'd done work with them. I got a copy of this survey, and it said, how many minutes do you feel is appropriate for your kid? It's impossible to answer that question because it didn't say anything about what they were doing with the technology, right? And so one of the things we have to remember is that what is being done with the technology makes far more a difference than the amount of time. And actually, I gave an example this morning that, Aaron, you heard, as I said, imagine if we said the same thing with another topic, right? We know that there's an obesity epidemic in the U.S. We have kids that are overweight, and so what if we were responsible? We said we're gonna have food time, and we're gonna set a food time limit, right? And our friends in LA might even vote to say how many minutes of food time should we have every day. In fourth grade, you get 20 minutes of food time, right? What's the problem with that? And the problem, of course, is that if they eat Twinkies for 20 minutes, the problem is actually going to get worse. So we're trying to limit obesity by setting food time limits. We're limiting food, right? But by not caring about the quality, we're actually making the problem worse. And a far better solution would be to say, hey, let's make sure we're eating healthy food, healthy variety, vegetables, right? And at that point, you eat till you're full, right? But it's about that quality that matters. And so anyway, just wanted to clarify that because I use that term here, and I want to make sure that that's clear. So examples of where it's working very well. The best examples I've seen are when technology is used to support students in creative activities. You're going to hear me say that a lot, but it's just because it's true. I like that better than, there's some curriculum tools out there where you stick the kid in front of there and click them through this and it'll reinforce their math skills. And there's some that are good and some that aren't, and there's research that shows it. But the technologies that I think are much more powerful are, again, ones that help encourage creativity. I was at a school that had devices. They had, I guess they were iPads or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter what they were. And they were working with younger kids to help reinforce vocabulary as part of their literacy program. And part of the challenge with early literacy is you need lots of repetition, lots of repetition, and repetition gets boring. And so finding ways to make it less boring helps. And so they had them do these, instead of these book reports that were kind of boring, they had them do sort of man on the street videos. And they asked the fourth graders to come with these devices, and they recorded these kids having to explain these books, basically video book reports. They're using their vocabulary. And of course, they made them take it 4 or 5 times to get the video right, right. What it was doing is just repetition, right? And so that's an example where there wasn't really like a curricular software. It was using technology to support a very creative activity, lots of repetition around the literacy. And so there's lots of examples like that. If you go to, students that are a bit older, some really great examples of, I just love being able to use technology to help with group collaboration, group work. And so using tools, Google Docs or whatever it is, to be able to say, hey, we're going to collaborate on this. But because of the way that the tool is set up, we can actually see whose contributions are coming in, and we can get a sense of how do we work together on a team. That's a really, really effective way to use technology. I can give many, many more examples, but those are the types. I often say, the least interesting thing we can do with technology is use it to present content. Presenting content on a screen is the least interesting thing we can do with technology. The most interesting thing we can do with technology is use it to create, problem solve, design, build, explore. All those words. That's what we want to do is help teach and model that these are tools for supporting creativity.
Yeah. Erin, a follow-up?
Not necessarily on that one. But you talk about how with technology, people can quickly go to extreme.
Yep.
So what is a good way that we as a board, as a district, can kind of help bring that temperature down when people are overly upset or excited or, thinking that, their kids are having too much screen time at school? What's a good way to help kind of bring down the temperature?
It's a great question. I would say two things. I'll give two pieces of this. One is be honest about the areas where you still need to do some work. I was with a superintendent in another district who we was doing a parent meeting, and there were some parents that were they were kind of frustrated, right? And we were dealing again this energy that you're feeling and hearing around this, and the superintendent got a question. Well, why my kids working sitting there watching videos instead of learning math, right? One of those questions, and the superintendent said, bless his heart, said we have this rigorous process, and we're using technology in ways that aligns with the vision for technology in our district, right? Finally, I stopped him. I just said, we both know that if we walk across the street, we're going to see kids that are watching YouTube videos that aren't aligned to. Look, let's not pretend, right? The answer that you need to say in that particular case is we got out a little ahead with the technology than we did with our teacher professional learning, and we are going to fix that. We know that technology is valuable, and we can talk about why, and we know that it is valuable when it is aligned to supporting learning. And we got a little ahead of that. And we need to help make sure that we're putting as much investment into supporting our teachers using technology as we are to buying devices. That just turned the conversation around. And so I think just admitting, and I will say, as I look over at Jared and others here, you have done a very thoughtful job of using technology in Jordan. And even here, there are opportunities that you have for ways to be more thoughtful, to help teachers use it in more engaging, more meaningful ways, higher level ways. And so just say, this is something we're working on. So that's the first part. The second part is lead with the why. So many of these conversations end up reverting back to talking about this, the type of device, the amount of minutes of the device, the software that's on the device. When you look at the research, the number one factor in the effective use of technology has nothing to do with the technology. It has to do with how it's being used by a human, by a teacher, by school leaders. And so what we encourage school boards to do is again, always lead with why. Have you read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why? Or have you watched the little video clip? It's a great video clip if you haven't seen it, Start With Why. But he just says we're so good at talking about the what we do and the how we do that we miss the why. And so when we work with schools, I often say, show me your vision for AI or your vision for technology. Or your acceptable use guide, right? Your plan, or whatever it is, acceptable use that everybody has to sign. Most of them are horrible. I wouldn't sign most of them. I'd be an opt-out parent. You hear me advocating for this, and I would opt out of half of that stuff because there's no learning in there. There's no why. There's a great draft version. I was slipped a draft version of a new bit of a AUP, acceptable use policy that's in the works for Jordan that I thought was fantastic, and it shifts it to be focused on why. But in all the communications, it's got to start with the why. And so if somebody came to me and said, what's your position on AI in school? What are we doing? I would say we believe that AI in our school is going to be used to support doing human skills better, increasing creativity, increasing curiosity. That's a good why. if I go in somewhere and say, well, it's to, everybody certified in an LLM and doing in 20 minutes a day per class, then we're gone. Then we're back in this. So keep the why really, really core. And if you don't have a core why, spend some time getting there. Spend some time wrestling with this. I imagine that you do, just knowing your district. But spend some time wrestling with what is the role that you really think technology plays, and be really clear about that and communicate that well to parents. And be open and honest when there are cases where technology is being used in ways that don't align with that vision, and do something about it. Yeah.
Nikki, go ahead.
Thank you for calling on me. I actually feel like you just hit on my question. My concern was the balance with teachers when they're using computers to supplement, and balancing being aware of what students are doing and actual face-to-face teaching. But I feel like you kind of got there.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point though, Nikki. Just that focus on how teachers are prepared to use this. So let me go back to this example that I shared about LA Unified that sort of passed this very rigid number of minutes, clocking minutes thing. I was with a principal there the other day. I was visiting and I walked around. She walked into a room, and this was a room, and she said, before this ban that we put in place, you would have walked into this room and you would have seen kids watching videos about who the heck knows what, not learning. She's like, let's go see what they're doing now. So we walked in. You know what they were doing? They were doing dot to dots. Bless you, on a piece of paper. She's like, what did we learn? We learned that right here, we have a teacher that isn't doing the instructional job well. We need to help that teacher, or if we can't help that teacher, we need to get them out of the classroom, right? But the fact that we took the device away meant those kids are now just as distracted, just as off task. So they're just doing it on a piece of paper instead of on YouTube. Arguably, we have not. And so the point, again, Nikki, back to your thing, is if we know what good instruction looks like, right? When we're really making sure we have high quality instruction, we're not. It doesn't. You can't ban your way to good instruction, unfortunately. It'd be a lot easier if you could. We actually have to model that and make sure our quality of teaching is up to par.
Thank you, Nikki. Brian?
You mentioned this document doesn't draw any conclusions. It just presents data and facts. Let's assume that as a district, we go through this document, we draw our own conclusions, and we decide we're all in. Whatever, I know that's kind of nebulous, but yeah, we're all in. What would you estimate? I'm looking for some financial information. What does it cost a district of 50,000 students to go all in on something like this? That's question one. And the second one would be, are there costs that we're currently paying that would be replaced, or that we wouldn't have anymore because we've gone this route? Or in other words, would it kind of be
could you offset it from somewhere? Yeah. Here's what I'll say. So first of all in generally means having a more thoughtful, sort of deeper engagement with professional learning for educators. I don't know. I'm happy to get back to you with some ideas of cost. I don't know enough about numbers here to be able to just rattle that off. But I will I'll tell you, it's not. It's not as significant as one might think. And here's what I mean by that. What we found, so we have a program called ISTE certification. A lot of school districts are using this now. It's a deep dive into using technology to support learning. And we get these educators, sometimes they're coaches, instructional coaches, sometimes they're sort of key educators in the building. We found that if you get one or two in every building, that enough actually helps shape the feeling and the instruction that's happening, because you have sort of these experts that we've embedded in. And so you have some amazing instructional coaches, making sure all of your instructional coaches actually are certified in this effective use of technology, making sure you have these key leaders. Because teachers learn so much more from each other looking to the side than they do from what's coming down from the top, you actually can make quite a big difference by doing that. And so we would say deep dive training on a small number of educators that are spread throughout, and then making sure that there's some, not as deep, but sort of a wide level of training on using technology effectively, particularly when it comes to AI for all educators. Again, happy to get back to these numbers, but I guess what I want to share is these are not enormous costs that we're talking about here. As far as your question about does it offset anything, there may be, right? One of the things that I see is again with really effective use of technology, you may see that some of the types of tools that you're using are actually not providing as much value as they need to be. But some of these other tools, like just using the Google Suite or whatever tool you use, I don't know what it is, but if you use like the Google Doc Suite, just using that in more deeper ways actually can get benefit without having to pay for some extra supplemental software. So it may be that you save some cost there. The main thing that you see is improvement in learning, and we've just seen that over and over and over again. And what you will have is more engaged learning, and more engaged learning that leads to higher attendance and higher proficiency scores. And you're doing a really awesome thing, which I wish I could get every school district in the country to do, which is that you're shifting to this idea of sort of competency-based grading. And I know you have a different term for it, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting what you're call it, but that idea of looking at skills, competencies is what everybody should be doing. It makes it actually really easy to start to measure the impact of using technology in this meaningful way.
Thanks.
So I know I didn't give you a dollar figure, but I'll get back to you with some examples there. Yeah.
Lisa?
I have another question.
Sure.
As I was reading through this document, the section 2, student well-being,
Yeah.
says high quality ed tech products are built by learning designers motivated by meaningful learning outcomes. Consumer tech, for example, social media games, is engineered for very high engagement and even addiction. Educational products are designed for learning and growth. And it seems like a lot of the ed tech products are engineered by the same groups that are engineering the consumer tech products, is like the Google Classroom suite. So Google is involved in consumer tech as well as am I right in thinking that Google Classroom is ed tech?
Yeah, I would say Google Classroom is ed tech. I would say the vast majority of the tools that are designed for the education space are not overlapping with the people that are building tools for the consumer space. I would say there's a almost very, very small overlap. There are a couple examples of this. Google is one of them. Google is one that has said, we will build, actually I'm trying to think, maybe the only one I can think of. They've said, we have a division that will work on just our education products. I don't represent Google. I don't have any, stake in Google, but I will say that we have an independent process where we review products, and the Google Education tool has been, I think, very thoughtfully designed by education designers. It is not the same people that are designing their other tools. To be very clear, and I'm wading into territory that I don't represent any particular company. I would say a tool like YouTube, for example, was not designed by an education team, and it was not designed for an education purpose. And so I think it's just very, very, in a company that has both education tools and non-education tools, you have to be very careful about the review of those tools. Fortunately, again, I don't know that I can think of another company that has done that. Maybe Microsoft, but they don't really have. They mostly use their consumer tools in education spaces. So it's a small group, and in those you got to look very carefully and make sure that we're confident that the tools that we're using for education purposes really are aligning to education design principles.
And so, does ed tech include hardware also, as far as like tablets and laptops and desktops?
It
I
does.
mean, in that term, ed tech, or is it just the software that we're talking about
We're generally
here?
talking about software. I mean, technically, I guess the definition is it could include hardware, but the hardware itself is sort of neutral, right? It doesn't. It's when you start to then do something with it that shapes the way it's being used, either for distraction or for supporting learning. So we tend to focus more on the software side of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So that leads to my question,
Okay.
Richard. Years ago, when the computer industry was brand new, there were two major personalities driving technology. One bet on education, that education will drive computer technology. The other bet on business. And clearly, it could be argued that business won. For 50 years now, we have created a model as a society that what develops technology is, how does it make money? How is it going to produce money for me? And I think we're worse off because that won out, instead of how can we produce technology that makes us better humans, that increases our ability to make our own money. And so, as someone who is kind of a national leader, I'm wondering, where is education when is education going to take the reins and say, education needs to drive technology instead of business? Education needs to drive technology, and that's how we as a human, as a race, as human beings, will actually be better for it. Mm-hmm. But I don't see any force out there pushing the future of technology to steer towards education. It's like you said, we've got a technology department who, we'll adopt an education branch, but where are the education drivers saying we need technology to do this?
It's such a great question. Thank you for asking. I think there's a number of ways. And you're right. We absolutely need to do that. And I would hope that Jordan District would be one of the places leading that. And I know that there are a lot, you know this, there are a lot of districts in Utah and beyond that are looking to see what you're doing. So no pressure, y'all, but I think as you lead in these ways, it will help show a path for other districts that may not know how to do it themselves. And so here's a couple examples. One is, bluntly, be part of organizations like ours. If you're involved, because what we do is we help aggregate. So the challenge that we find when you talk to some of these companies, especially large companies, but even smaller ones, if they have a good education team trying to do the right thing in education, they want to, make a difference. The ability for them to talk to every school district that calls them is hard. And you're a larger district, but some district, imagine some of these districts have 5,000 students total, right? They're not even going to they're not even get the voicemail of some of these teams that are building these tools. So one of the things that the nonprofit organizations like we do is we help aggregate that. And so we bring together school leaders and we say, what are the things that you want to see? What are the frustrations that you have? And we aggregate that and we go to those companies and we say, well, it's not just us. We're coming representing, 20,000 school districts. You need to make a change here. Can I give you an example of how we did this the other day? It was a year ago, feels like the other day. Schools were coming, and this was largely before the devices were not allowed in schools during the day, and they were saying Instagram is incredibly disruptive. It's incredible. Students are posting things, and when we go and we flag a post that is inappropriate, it gets ignored. And then sometimes they'll say, well, we can't do anything about it because it doesn't actually violate a law, but it's causing major problems, especially in schools where it may be some of these T accounts or whatever that were created that says, I saw this kid with his girlfriend, and all of a sudden there's this big kerfuffle from something that was posted and no way to remove that. And we talked to districts and they said, we have been pounding on the doors of Instagram to try to do something about this, and they are ignoring us. And so we aggregated that and went to them and said, you got to make this change. And we worked with them to do it. And you may not be aware of this, but there's actually a school mode. If you're a school administrator, you can register an Instagram account, and it will give you literally a school mode. It opens that up, and it gives you expedited ability to remove any posts that are inappropriate or flag whole accounts, which you can't do on the normal Instagram app, right? Now, even better that we have that not as a distraction in schools at all, which is great. But that's just an example of something where we said schools need this, and any one school on their own doesn't have the voice. Come to us and let's help aggregate that. We do something kind of cool every year. So this big event that we host, I mentioned we bring 20,000 education leaders together. We do an event right before that where we bring together key ed tech leaders. And we bring them together, and they jokingly call us EdTech Switzerland because we sort of broker these two conversations. And we say, here is what we are hearing from schools. You got to do something about this. Or here's what's happening with your, here's one example that we pushed on them just a couple weeks ago. It'll be a little while before you see these changes. We said, you can't tell us how much time is spent using the tool and expect us to think that that means impact, right? A lot of these impact studies are like, well, kids used it for 4 hours. That doesn't mean impact. In fact, that could mean the opposite if it takes them 4 hours to do something that should be done in 1. And so we're driving the industry to make those changes. So that would be the first thing that I would say. I would also share that there are some things that you can do in your procurement processes that schools notice, so that industry notices. So let me tell you one example. We have a process that we have called the ISTE seal. You may have heard. It's like the Good Housekeeping seal of approval on products. And so what we do is we go to products and we basically do research on them. And so we dive deep and we say, hey, you say that you're aligned to principles of education. Show me. You say that you're being built by a team of education developers that know how to build for schools and not just your commercial team that's over here. Show me, verify that. So we put them through the ringer a bit, and then we give them this seal called the ISTE seal. We've had some districts that say, if you go through our procurement process, if you don't have the ISTE seal, it'll deduct points from you in the process. We're not saying you can't go through, I can't do it, but it'll put you at a disadvantage for a product that does. That's a signal to the market. And they listen to that, and we've seen some changes there. So we're working to do, and we also have a tool called the EdTech Index, by the way, that aggregates other organizations that also do seals. So we do it. Our seal is the best one in the industry when it comes to aligning to principles of effective learning. Right? We're the best at that. We're not the best at accessibility. We know accessibility is important, but our expertise is in learning, not in accessibility. There's a group called CAST, another nonprofit that is the Center for Accessible something, I'm getting their name wrong. They're the accessibility people. They review tools for accessibility. So we created this database, this EdTech Index, and we said, why don't you load in there all the products you've reviewed? We'll load in all the ones we've reviewed. Anybody, in fact, the state of Utah is about to put in all of their I believe the state of Utah actually does a particularly good job of reviewing student data privacy legislation. They're pretty good at that. We're going to load that data in there. So we're trying to create a place that you can go to and see in one shot what validations some of these tools have. But that's a long way to say, if you signal in your procurement process and make noise about it when you do, right? We're putting in here that we're expecting tools to have, ISTE seal or other third-party validations. Make sure they know about that. That's a sign that they need to get on the bandwagon.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Daryl?
Yeah, first, thank you.
Daryl's kind of new about technology and education.
Yeah, I heard he's just figuring this out. It's all right. I'll be kind with his question, yeah.
Might be a rookie question.
Yeah.
Bear with him.
So I am a little frustrated sometimes because I think God gave me this ability to be an early innovator. And so I saw a lot of this coming a decade ago, and why I ran for the school board was to rethink education, to move it in a space I thought it needed to go, and we're there. I just remember, like in my doctorate program, someone showing me about what AI is and virtual reality and how it could change education. Some guy was making an AI robot that taught kids who didn't speak English how to learn English from Spanish, and it was just fascinating to me. And so it's cool to see where we are here, but I have some impatience with the resistors especially. I know that I'm an early adopter. I know that I love something new and I just jump at it, but I know that others will catch up, and I think that's where we are right now. I think the mainstream now is just getting around there. Tell me what your advice is to the naysayers. Yeah. I got an email today from an administrator who just said, we got to throw all the technology out. We got to go back to the books and only use handwriting. And I just don't know that we're going there. Speak to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a number of things going on. I think one of the challenges that we just have to be aware of. Somebody wrote, it wasn't me. Somebody wrote a really great article about the what did she call it? The nostalgia for an education system that never existed. And I think a lot of times we talk to leaders, talk to parents. It was so good back before technology. Why can't we just go back to that? And I'm like, so good? Do we want to know? Should we talk about the students that we failed for decades? Can we talk about, I'm not saying we didn't do hard work, and I love teachers, and I was a teacher, and we worked in, but let's not pretend that everything was great, and then all of a sudden it didn't go well. And so I think we need to recognize that there's this nostalgia for a vision, an experience of school that just isn't real for so many students. I was here in Utah when they first started reporting crosstab data for the first time in the state of Utah. And And I was in a school, I shared which one it was, so sorry, I'm not throwing them under the bus, that had a very high graduation rate. And we just were very happy walking around knowing that we had a very high graduation rate until we suddenly had to report the crosstab data. And what we found is we had a near 100% graduation rate for certain kids and a near 0 for others. And that because there was a high population of this one particular group of kids, it looked pretty good. And we were feeling great until we saw that we were systemically failing these groups of kids. And so I think we just need to just be aware that sort of nostalgia may not be real. I think the question is, for somebody who may be skeptical and cautious about adopting, which I think is good, by the way. I am all about. I think we need a healthy dose of skepticism in education. I think part of why we've gotten into some challenges that we have is because we were a little too quick to jump into something. We need some safe ways to test. But I think when it comes to topics that we know are going to be needed, right? We know when kids graduate, we know they're going to need to be able to use AI in thoughtful ways that support their human skills. We know they're going to be able to need to use technology in ways that support their learning. We know that those skills aren't skills that you can wait until you graduate to then cram at the end. It just doesn't work that way. And so when there are people that are resistant, the resistance is likely coming from, one, seeing some bad examples out there. And so I think if we aren't recognizing where these things can lead to bad scenarios, I'd be pretty skeptical. I was skeptical of my buddy, that superintendent, who was saying it's all good. I said, it's all good. Now I'm skeptical of anything that this person's going to say, right? And so that person says there's real value, but we got to get some things right on our side. Now I'm feeling like I can trust that person a little bit more. That's part of it. And then the other part, Daryl, that I think I would turn to is I think sometimes we don't do, and I shared this earlier as well, but I don't think we do a good enough job of articulating the reason why it matters. And so that idea of every kid should learn how to program an LLM, I'm like, I don't think my kid needs to learn how to. If that's the message that you're sending me, I'm not sure I agree. But if you say the most powerful tool for problem solving, right? Technology is the language of future problem solving. And we can either give our kids the tools to be future problem solvers, or we can have them outsource their ability to solve problems to somebody else. And we don't want to outsource the ability to solve problems to somebody else. We want our kids knowing how to be the one solving the problem with the tools. That why is a very compelling why. And so that can buy in people that might be skeptical. Now, again, you gotta mirror that, you gotta couple that with actually doing that. You can't just say that and then be using technology in what I call nexters. You're just clicking next through content on a screen. That's not problem solving. But I think if you can couple the why with the really using it in those thoughtful ways, I think you can bring people along.
Can you speak a little additional on the two naysayers that concern me the most? Number one is parents, and number two is legislators.
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time meeting with parents. In fact, we're hoping to try to make it work here to do a parent meeting. We couldn't make the scheduling work, but at another time, I'd love to do that if that ever works out. When I talk to parents, I think what I often find is that they have the core of their concerns are very real. They run into a causation versus correlation issue sometimes. So what I mean, and we actually talk about that a little bit in this document. So, and this comes up when people say, well, test scores went down about the same time mobile phones, smartphones came out. Therefore, that must be the cause of the scores going down, which actually is not true. There's a number of factors and some really interesting things if you dive into it, including the fact that right around the same time we rolled out more rigorous standards across the U.S. Right, so there's a number of things that are going on, and so I think one of the things that's important to do is sort of tease out what's correlation, what's causation. I often use the joke, if you've ever taught this, but I think it's a useful one. Right, in the summer, that we see a higher instance of shark attacks. We also see a higher instance of ice cream sales. And so therefore, ice cream must cause shark attacks. And if we ban ice cream, we can stop shark attacks from happening, right? That's where we get into, and it sounds ridiculous, but a lot of, we get into these spaces where we're careful. And I think that's one of the things that we just have to talk about. And so I think when I talk with parents that are resistant, I say, let's see what we agree on. I agree that we have not done a good job of helping kids use devices, these technology in meaningful ways. And we're talking about it in terms of the school right now, but I think the far bigger problem that we're seeing is at homes. And I think what we're seeing in a lot of cases is parents that have felt they've lost control at home They don't know what to do about it. And so they're going to see if we can put limits over here on school that will make us feel better about the conditions at home. And so I think any supports that we can do, say, we agree, we absolutely agree with that. Now let's talk about causation versus correlation. And so what you're talking about here are types of uses of technology that are very different. The ones that you're seeing are very different than what we're using in a science lab where we're simulating something in a safe way to keep your kids safe but still teach them an important science concept, whatever it is. So let's talk about that. How do we do this? And again, not to sound like I'm self-promoting here, but I wrote a great book called Digital for Good that we can give to parents if they want to. But that is the focus of the book, which is how do you create healthy conditions at home? I don't think we've done enough. I don't think most schools have done a good enough job with that. And you could say, oh, it's not our job. And I could go, yeah, but then you're still dealing with the problems of it. And so I would encourage you to think about how do you support parents in creating healthier conditions at home. You don't tell them how to parent. That's not your job, right? Don't tell them what their values should be. Again, not your job. But can you tee up some more meaningful conversations? Some of the schools that we work with have created sample technology use agreements for home, which I recommend. I recommend every home have. My kids, we have a document where we say, here's the agreements. If I'm buying this for you and paying for the connection, the data plan, we're going to have an agreement about that. And here's some things that we're going to agree to. And it's not a list of don'ts. If all of your technology rules are don'ts, we got a problem. So there are things like, I expect you to use this to be curious. I expect you to use it to stay in touch with your family. I shared it earlier today. I'm one of those people that goes on vacation. I don't take a single picture. I forget. I hate that I do that. I never do. And so I said, part of our deal, our contract with our kids is you capture family memories with this, right? You help capture. So set those up. Teeing that up as a template for parents, give it editable. They can edit the heck out of it, right? Whatever they want to do. But just the fact that you're saying, let's get that in place. Another thing that we've done in schools is we've sent home questions to ask at the family. What do you think, what are some things that you might do what might you do if you discover some information that somebody shares with you on a digital device that you think isn't accurate? What do you do? Do you call them out? Do you just secretly know that it's right? There's just these conversation starters to get these more meaningful questions happening at home. And then the last thing that we share with parents are some just real solid, very, very supported conditions. So one of the conditions that we know is kids should never sleep with a device, should not be in their beds, should not be in their rooms. It's crazy to me how many kids sleep with one of these next to them. Absolutely no reason for that. And so we, in our house, we have a charging station, and you get to bring in your phone and charge it. We charge it for free as long as it's there before 10 o'clock at night. We're great parents, right? And if you don't have it in by 10 o'clock at night, we'll charge it too. But it's crazy. If you don't have it plugged in by 10, it takes the whole next day to charge. So we'll give it to you the day after. Sorry, I don't know why that happens with our power in our homes, right? And so teeing up those examples, many parents don't even know how to do things like have turn on parental controls for approving apps. And if they do, they're using it as a approval or a disapproval, and not using it as a moment to have a conversation about whether that app has value or not, right? So just teeing those up. Sorry, I'm giving you a very long answer. This is a wind me up and watch me go subject. You got to forgive me. But just teeing up more meaningful conversations at home helps parents then build conditions that make it easier for you to deal with than when the kids are on your time.
It's actually a phenomenal answer. As I walked away from the ISTE conference in Orlando over and over again, I kept thinking the next step is the parent. How do you connect the parent to education? Because for a long time, I think that connection's not there. We send our kids off to school to learn. And so for you saying that just validated my vision of where I'm going next. But I would like you to speak for just a second about legislators who are creating barriers, and they think they're doing guardrails, but they're not.
Yeah. So I think the quick version that I would say on that is most of the time that happens from legislators that aren't spending time in schools. And so I would encourage you to do whatever you can to build relationships with legislators and invite them in. Invite them to come and learn what you're doing. Invite them to come in and see. We've talked to some. Had a key legislator, not from the state, came to our conference, came to ISTE Live, and came up and talked to me. He's like, I talked to you about it. And he said, here's all these concerns. And I said, let me have you go sit on in this session here, go sit over here. And I sort of pointed him to go observe some things there. I said, come talk to me afterwards. And he came back and he said, I had no idea that these sorts of things were possible when we were talking about technology. He says, I was supporting banning all this because all I thought this was kids scrolling on TikTok all day, and that should be banned. I said, yeah, I agree. Get that out of here, right? but do you see what you're missing with all these other pieces? And so just getting immersed in that, and it's surprising to me. I don't know, maybe it's not. And I worked for policymakers for years. I worked for senators. It's surprising how many legislators legislating on education issues don't really spend time in schools. A walk through and taking a picture isn't what I mean. I mean, go observe, go help, have them talk to some of the teachers, really share those examples. So trying to get them immersed, I think, it's the best thing that I think you can do. If it's helpful, sometimes having them talk to organizations like ours, sort of large, respected nonprofit. We've been around for 80 years, been respected in these issues for a very long time. Sometimes we can meet with them and share and say, let's share some data. What are you really trying to get at? Can we help you get at what you're trying to do without doing it in a way that's harmful? We had a case a while ago, a number of years ago. This was when the data privacy, the online privacy stuff was really scaring everybody. And we had a legislator that had proposed a bill that was basically banning all student data to be in virtual spaces. And I met with him. I said, I get what you're trying to do, but let me make sure you understand that the second you do that, no parent is going to be able to check their kids' grades online, right? It was even before we had mobile apps, so you couldn't even log on and kid you. Parents are going to be pretty frustrated about that. So, well, we wouldn't want to do that. I was like, I understand that, but the way you've written this, no student data in the cloud, means you will not be able to share student grades. And so helping just unpack, what are you trying to do? Can we help you write legislation that does limit, in the way, we should limit technology in schools. Don't misunderstand that. We should absolutely limit technology in schools, but we should limit it based on quality, not based on time. And so helping have those conversations can be helpful. If I can be helpful to have conversations with anybody, call me in. I'm happy to do it.
I just wanted to make a comment. So I went to upload the copy online because Elisa mentioned it, and I will say that your website doesn't allow for board members to. It says, what's your title? And there's not school board.
Do you know, can I tell you, and I'm so sorry about that, it was on there and it got removed somehow, unintentionally. I just had somebody ping me about that the other day, and they're like, what, are we not good enough to be? I was like, no, we have lots of school board members that participate. We have, on our panels, we have school board members. We will get that fixed. I don't know how that happened. The title dropped off. We love having school board members, both state and district school board members participate.
So I was walking through the convention center where all the vendors are, and I walked up to this one and started talking to him, and he asked what I do, and I said I'm on the school board. And he goes, oh, you won't be interested in this. And he gave me a free mug and sent me on my way. Found out later that we actually have a PFR and their proposal, and and they put a proposal in, but we won't.
Good, tell me who that was. We won't invite them back.
But anyways, I would like to invite members of our school board to join us. It's phenomenal. I had that aha moment during your speech when you announced the new title of the association, and this ball is rolling so quickly. We can have people who try to stand in the way and people who are naysayers, but I think it's part of the future of 21st century learning. One last thing, maybe a selfish, I always look a decade ahead. Bryce knows this. I'm not really good at carrying them through, but I'm interested in what's next. So
he does that on us.
Yeah, I got you.
What's on the horizon? What have we not heard yet that you think is coming, or are we just kind of stuck with all of this to catch up with?
Well, we have plenty to catch up with, but I will tell you what I'm super excited about is really excited about this is right now when we're talking about AI, we're talking about what they call frontier models, right? These sort of generic models, the Gemini and Claude and whatever. And there's great things you can do. There's things that you can do with these that are so powerful for learning. I was just sharing earlier today when I was meeting with some teachers that, I tried for years when I was teaching to come up with a tool that would help give feedback on students that were learning Spanish to know how to do past subjunctive, right, past tense, which is very, very hard to do if you're not familiar with Spanish. And I tried to create a simulation, and they were going to our founding developer was going to charge me $500,000 to make this thing. I can now build a better simulation than he was going to do with one sentence written in English. I just say, give me some examples, to the student, give some examples of phrases and have them identify the correct conjugation. And if they don't get it right, help know why. Find the rule that they're missing and help teach it to them, right? Man, that's powerful stuff, right? So you can do great stuff with the frontier models. But what is coming is these sort of specialized models. So instead of, the way I think about it is right now you go to a doctor and you can go to a general, a general practitioner kind of doctor, and they're great. They'll keep you generally healthy. But when I got a real issue that I need somebody, I have an eye issue, I'm going to an eye specialist. And we're in the mode where we're starting to see these domain-specific AI tools. And so what they're doing, and we're piloting one, and by the way, if anybody wants to have access to it, I'm happy to, I don't know who I work with to get access to it, we'll get you access to it.
I know a guy.
Somebody. So what we did on these specialized models, we said, we are building an LLM, it's an AI model, but it's not pulling its information from the general interwebs, right? It's not pulling it from, it is only pulling the information from our 80 years of education research and publishing. And so what we've created in this particular model is an instructional coach. And so you can go in and you can say, hey, I'm struggling with engagement. I'm a new teacher. I'm just not feeling I'm getting engagement. What do I do? And it will have a conversation with you. All of the advice that it's giving is cited. You can click and see where it was cited from. It will go to one of our researcher papers or one of our books. You can see it all. It gives very highly, so the amount of hallucinations you hear about, almost zero, right? I'm not saying it is going to be perfect, and you should check. And we were talking about, even when I'm in a PLC with other teachers, some of the advice that I hear from other teachers isn't always perfect, and so I'm going to check it all, but it's going to be much more accurate and it's going to be cited. We are starting to see that shift happening over the next couple of years, and it's going to be really awesome. So I would be watching that. It's also particularly cool that us, human students, are able to. It's becoming much easier to create our own specialized AI. We call them agents, right? And so you can come in and say, I want to build one. I actually do this for my. I have a board. I sit in front of a board, just like this here. And so I have an AI agent where I've uploaded my bylaws, our policies, our vision, mission statement, my goals, all of the ends. And I've said in here, I'm going to ask it questions. I want to do this program. Tell me the right way to do it that doesn't violate any of these policies. And that agent is designed specifically to give me answers based on that area of expertise. Super powerful. I had a CEO the other day who said to me, from actually a company here in Utah, it turned out, he said they're going to start interviewing for jobs, people, candidates with their AI agents. So come to a job interview, you and your team of agents. So bring me and show us what you can do together. What can you do with the 3 or 4 agents that you've developed and helped create? That idea of shifting towards these very specific tools, not these generic ones that we're seeing that are cool, but they often get things wrong. That's where we're going, and I think that's really exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please come to Boston.
I have found this conversation so valuable and your expertise. I hesitate to ask my question because now I'm wondering if I should ask an AI agent just to
We
save
can try
some
both.
time.
Let's do both and see who gives a better answer.
So what I'm trying to distill here is priorities, because there's so much. I've heard focus on professional learning, that's key, removing access that doesn't have value, and engaging parents and other stakeholders. But could you help me set priorities for going forward? What should I keep in mind?
I think there are 2 things that you can do. I'm cheating because I'm going to give you 2 that encompass almost all of the rest. And so one is that focus on professional learning and really getting that right. There is no shortcut around that. And anything you do other than that, I watch a lot of districts that go, there's a financial investment that it takes. And so we're going to try to avoid doing that one with some other things that maybe cost less. They always end up spending more money in the end. Because some of those things that we talked about eliminating tools and approaches that aren't as good, and you get all that for free if you get the professional learning right. And so I would say focus on that is your number one. And then the second part of that is you can't ignore parents. And not that you ever would, but you have to keep them in the loop. And again, I think, it's been interesting. I've been in some districts where they really are using technology in great ways. And I say, how are you sharing this with parents? And it's not only technology, it's other things too. How are you sharing this with parents? Like, well, we give them this list at the beginning of the year of all the tools that we're using. I don't care what tools you're using. That's the least interesting thing you're doing. How are you doing? How are you creating? How are you? And they just haven't prioritized that. And I think it's easy to say it's not our job. Our job is to teach kids, not to train parents. And I would just push back and say it really is your job. It's a job to bring parents along, and anything you can do. I mentioned this idea of parent universities. One of the districts I'm going to actually next week is a district in St. Louis, and they have me coming and doing a parent university around AI. And we're not teaching. We're actually going to show them how to use AI for learning purposes, right? We're going to say let's talk about using it to get feedback. Let's talk about using it for brainstorming partner, and we actually go through this. And what happens is they walk away going, oh, that was not what I thought it was, right? From the vision that I have of AI or technology or whatever. So I think those are the two. You gotta be, I think, creative in some ways of bringing along parents, and you gotta prioritize that coaching and professional development. Yeah.
That issue comes up a lot in our district, and we say we're not solving parent issues, we're solving our issues. We are solving our issues, and there's a relationship.
That's right.
We don't want to step on your toes, but allow us to solve the issues that we're facing.
Yeah.
And there's a partnership there.
Yeah. Let us show you what we're doing, right? And do it in a way that I think it's very powerful to be able to show how do you what are some interesting things we can do with AI? What are some interesting? By the way, I should make sure you're aware of this. We do a thing every year. It's about to launch. It'll launch, I think, in just a couple weeks, called the AI Innovators Challenge. And the AI Innovators Challenge, and we have guides on how to do this. Teachers can lead it after school, sometimes it does after school. And these are students that submit solutions. They have to pick a tough problem in the world, right? A tough problem in their community in the world. And they have to use AI to build a solution that helps address that issue. And so what we're doing is we're showing this is not a tool to just give me an answer. It's a tool that I can use to help problem solve, right? And then we do a competition, and we award, sort of 5 teams from around the world, the best ones. Some districts, what they've done is they said, we're going to do this a little differently. We're going to do it district-wide, and we'll do the competition with everybody, and then the top 4, winners, or one from every school, those are the ones that will submit to ISTE to be part of the international competition, right? So, there are ways to do it, but that idea of just showing what this looks like, man, and we invited parents to that, and you have parents that are like, I actually had one parent that said, this is amazing, you should be doing more of this. And I was like, you were the one just telling me to ban technology. Like, yeah, I don't want you to do any of that, but do more of this. I'm like, what I said? I said, great, you are that, we will just do more of that. So I think just the more you can model for parents what the good looks like.
Richard, thank you.
Hey.
This has been a treat for us. We would love a photo and a handshake if you're up for that.
Always
if
up for that.
We could step into the other room, it's a little bit more accommodating for a photo, and then I think every one of us would love to shake your hand before you go. But thank you.
Happy to, yeah.
You have blessed our district, and we're grateful for your expertise. We're grateful for those who lead the cause.
Thank you, and you're very kind to have me and give so much time with me. And I would just say, from a completely self-serving way, right? The more districts I can show that are doing it right and point people to, the easier it makes my job. So if I can do anything to help you really nail this, really help get this right, I'm in. However, whatever you need, because it makes it easier for me to go bring everybody else along. So thank you.
Board, let's step into the other room and take a photo with Richard. It's been an opportunity to have him here. Thank you, board. Let's continue. Board, or item B on our agenda, we talked about at our summit that we are going to take a few minutes at each board member at each board meeting and have someone share an inspiration. This is what makes me a better board member. Our beloved Erin has volunteered to go first, so we turn the time over to her. Now, we agreed on 3 minutes, but we're not going to hold you to it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was really excited about talking about this at our summit meeting that we had, just improving our professional development as a board. So I thought that would lead out and share something with you all. I did have a document put on board docs, but something that I've decided to do to help with my professional development is work on my personal development. I feel like just like in an emergency where you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you can help others, you need to kind of set your own strong foundations personally before you can start to really develop yourself professionally. So I decided to sign up for a 4-week challenge through PEHP actually on mental resiliency. And even though it's focused on your personal life, the 6 areas they highlight really mesh perfectly with developing yourself professionally. So the document I put on, the 6 things it highlights are building supportive relationships, setting clear boundaries, making meaningful contributions, strengthening positive networks, forming realistic expectations, and developing life skills. They have you start by listing strengths that you already have in these 6 areas and ways that you can improve. And I like to take time, for the past 5 days now, I've been really good and taking at least 10 minutes each morning to reflect on these areas. If you don't already have your own kind of daily ritual for personal development, I would encourage you all for the next couple weeks to look at this document and pick areas that you might want to focus on yourself, either personally or professionally. And I just wanted to end by sharing a few mantras that we use in our house. And sometimes I think that we forget that these positive affirmation or mantras we use with our kids are for adults as well, because we're all still learning. The ones we use most frequently at our house are, you can do hard things, anything meaningful takes time and effort, discipline equals freedom, and our new one for the school year will be curious, not judgmental. And as adults, we're all still learning and growing personally and professionally. And so as we come together for the next 6 meetings, I'm looking forward to hearing what the rest of you are doing for your own professional development. So that's my moment, and I wonder who would like to go next. If we want to set a schedule or just go down the row, who would like to do it next?
I just have a small comment. I think that Suzanne has something to share is based on this agenda item. Am I correct?
Yes, but maybe I misunderstood the agenda item.
Because I would like you to be able to share, and if anybody else has something based on their like the America 250 projects.
We're going to do America 250 next board meeting.
That's, I wondered when.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand that.
This was just the assignment from, great.
This is what she's referring
And
to.
I've got mine as well.
Okay.
That will be
remember
on
we
the
were gonna-
board.
Thank you.
I misunderstood this agenda item then. So.
America 50, yeah. I remembered we were all going to report back on something we did, so.
Yeah, we'll get that on the agenda at our next meeting. This was just the professional development reporting. But anyone would like to go next at our professional development moment? If not, I'm going to,
Oh.
all right, Daryl's it. Brian, will you make
I
a
just
note?
didn't know that you guys were all looking at me.
Daryl will take 3 minutes at our next meeting to do a board professional development moment.
It will be 3 minutes shorter than.
Can I make a proposal? As we started with Erin and then went to Daryl, maybe we should go in this clockwise motion.
Counterclockwise.
Cool.
Great.
Is it counterclockwise? Yeah, counterclockwise.
I'll go last.
And then I'll follow up after the last one on what we want to do next for
Okay.
professional development.
Great. But we've got it noted that Daryl's going to go next. Yep. And now we know exactly the order we're going in.
Yep.
I'll note it.
Great, thank you. All right, item C, this is a review of Administrative Policy AA 445, Student Information Network Acceptable Use Policy. Interesting timing with our discussion we've just had. Desired outcome here is we are either going to move forward with their recommendation or ask them to modify it and come back, or we can take no action at all. So we're going to have Mr. Larson make the presentation today. He's going to present their proposal to the changes to the policy, what they propose to change, why they propose to change it, and then I'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions for clarification, and then I'll look for a motion, and then we'll take action or have a discussion after that. So Mr. Larson is going to take the lead. So Mr. Larson, take it away.
Thank you very much. This last legislative session, SB 88 passed, which amended Utah Code Section 53G-7-1000, that series of code sections. And I have here with me today Tony Mudo, who is our Assistant Director over Network and Telecom Manager, or that's the old one, yeah, Network and Telecom, and Mr. David Bowman, that's the Assistant Director for Systems and Security. They're here to make sure I don't misrepresent any of this stuff. SB 88 required some things be changed in our policy. The good news is that we had most of this in place already. We had the scaffolding in place. We just needed to add a few words so that we're compliant with the law. We did, by the way, send a draft of this to Mr. Van Komen as well to review.
Do we have a thumbs up from Mr. Van Komen? We do.
So the good news is that a lot of this is just some copy and paste from the new law, putting it into the policy. We were already doing filtering anyways. That was already required before this. This just puts more definitions around what they want the policy to look like. So we just had to tweak policy AA 445 to do this. So I'm going to go over some of the changes with you and outline those. The first one is they wanted some phrasing in here about the how and why of this filtering. So that has been added into that scope section, so that those sections of the new law are covered, talking about content filtering system and restricting access to internet and online sites that contain obscene material. And those phrases come from that new code. If we go down, the next change is going to be in section 5. We changed, obviously, action to have some procedures and guidelines, because that's what they want in here. The two new sentences in 5C are to cover the requirements of the new law. Essentially, these are trying to help parents know who to contact if they have a question, and that this is the policy behind it. Again, those phrases in 5C were essentially copy and paste from the statute. Section 6 is a whole new section for us. The good news here is that we were already doing these things, but this law requires that it be outlined specifically in statute, so we have done that. The first one is that parents now have the option of requesting their students be placed in a group with a pre-approved list of websites. We've been doing this for a long time, about a decade. If a parent has called, or if an administrator has called and said, hey, we need to, these are my words, that a student needs to be put in network timeout, that we have that system built up already to do that. So we already have a list of websites to do this that are pre-arranged, and we've had this for so long that we feel like it's a pretty refined list. Mr. Heaps, the Director of Information Systems, told me that he is unaware of any parent calling ever that had a student on this list to say, hey, I didn't want the student to get on jordandistrict.org, or I didn't want them to get on Salt Lake Community College. Those are some of the examples of the exceptions that are on the list.
Question on that?
Yes.
Is there a policy in place somewhere that that indicates how often we review the sites on that list? Because something came up, I don't know, within the last year where there was a site we were linked to, and at the time we linked to it, everything was great, but there was a point in time where that site had
Yeah.
some objectionable material.
Things change. Yeah. So Mr. Heaps did inform me that Mr. Muto and him did just do a complete review of those sites within, he told me a time frame, but last month is what he told me. Just last month, they went through all of those websites again in preparation for this meeting to be sure that those sites were still good.
Yeah.
So we have done that.
Is that like an annual thing, or just whenever we think we should do it, or?
Mr. Muto, can you help me with that? How often do you guys review that list?
And is it in
Into the
code?
microphone.
I think Mr. Barnett's question is that in our policy manual?
Well, the code allows us to set which ones are on that approved list. So we can change that approved list at our discretion. The code just wants us to create that list and maintain it. But I think your question is, well, how are we maintaining it, and how are we sure that it's not changing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have been doing it every 2 to 3 years. I can do it annually if that is something that we think we need to do. But initially, it was requested that I do it every 2 or 3 years.
Is that something we would want?
Will you ponder that and bring it back to the board if you feel like that's something that needs to be added to policy?
Okay.
Why don't you make a few phone calls, and you'll spearhead that, and if you feel that needs to be added to policy, let's bring it up at a future
Okay,
day.
I'll take that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The websites that are included on this list of exceptions include things that we have to have, the device has to have access to, like content filtering has to access websites, antivirus has to access websites. There's administration uses such as Canvas, the productivity software such as Google. There are some education resources that teachers and principals have specifically asked, I need this website listed. And then education institutions like Jordan District, Salt Lake Community College, BYU. And then we do have some that are on the list where a teacher has their specific website. And the example I was given was Mrs. Jones' personal 5th grade science webpage, so that that student can still access those activities or that lesson plan that she has out there. And again, we haven't had anyone that's used this restrictive list has been good with it. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first section of 6A. 6B, we're required to provide a way for parents to view the websites their students are accessing on the provided device. In our district, we do this through what's called iBoss Parent Portal. We actually started this last September. A quick start guide was sent out to schools and then parents in October, and then communications sent out another quick start guide to parents. And then this summer, parents and students will have access to that as they're registering for school again. So that is just to help parents if they wish to see which websites their students are accessing can be on there. And this iBoss portal has other options on it for parents if parents wish to utilize them. They're not part of the statute, so they're not listed here, but it's a nice tool for parents to access and see, such as time restraints, if you want to put time restraints on the device.
Now, I do remember that going out last October to parents, but I did not have students in secondary schools where they'd be bringing a laptop home, every day and using that. So for this new school year, how are parents being told about that? Did you say during registration?
My understanding is during registration on the network use policy discussion, it'll be there. But we could send out another communication if you wanted,
I
say
think that would be
September or October, because I think there's going to be some parents that are going to be overwhelmed with registration, start of school, and yeah, getting everything taken care of. And I think another reminder would be good.
Because I forgot about it until just now, and I've got a 7th grader this year, so I'm like, oh yeah, I need to sign up for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is anyone on the board opposed to that? Give me a thumbs down if you're opposed to them sending a reminder on iBoss Parent Portal. Okay, will you do that?
This would be
Superintendent?
every year ongoing, making it a routine. Yeah.
We might try to find another parent communication so it kind of goes together. Okay, and then another requirement of this law, it's a little different, but the law requires that there be a footnote on the policy that indicates the date the policy was last reviewed. Because the law requires it be reviewed by the board at least every 3 years.
Okay.
So there is a footnote being added on at the bottom here. We do have revision dates. Of course, the revision date will be updated, but say in 3 years we revisit this and there are no changes, we at least need to change that footnote. They want that done. There are 3 action items in this law that we must have this policy approved in an open board meeting. So if the board's comfortable with this discussion today, the proposal would be to bring it back in 2 weeks for the business meeting for the board to formally adopt these changes. The other action item is that it must be reviewed every 3 years. And the third action item is a little interesting, is they required, and I meant to put this on board docs. There is a requirement within this new law that every school post in a conspicuous place information about where they can gain access about the network use policy. So there was a group put together in the district consisting of, digital teaching and learning team. We had communications. I think Mike Anderson was involved with it, coming up with, and Mr. Collado was talking about that. It's more of a reframing of the acceptable use policy around some pillars. And those pillars are at the bottom of this flyer. Be respectful, be responsible, be safe, and be empowered. But it tells them where they can go read this policy. And so we've asked every school to post this in a conspicuous place to be in compliance with the law. And with all of that, SB 88, we believe we will be in compliance with. And those are the proposed changes to this policy.
Questions first and then comments after we make a motion. So questions about the policy.
I have one for 5C. It talks about how someone from the district will handle issues and things that come up, the disciplinary procedures and guidelines. Who specifically at the district will be handling that? If something comes up at a school, is the parent notified, and then like the principal sends that information to someone at the district and then they contact the parent? Who is the district head of that?
I think there's many different faces of that. The AOS is for sure. The principal reports to the AOS. The AOS can help enforce disciplinary action there. But I think there's a couple other team members. We do have, of course, Mr. Muto, Mr. Bowman, that can help with access issues and seeing what has taken place. But we also have folks in student services to assist that. So I would say there's a larger team addressing this than you may think of.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just add that it's going to be fact sensitive.
Yeah. Yep.
Other questions? I will entertain a motion as to how you want to proceed.
Would that be something like I move that we approve this?
That we instruct staff to bring this back at our business meeting in 2 weeks.
I'll say.
Okay.
Let her say the motion. I said it. I need her to say it.
I move that we instruct staff to bring this policy back for approval, adoption, in our next business meeting.
I'll second it.
Great. I have a motion by Ms. Woods and a second by Mr. Robinson to instruct staff to bring this policy back for approval at our business meeting in 2 weeks. Now, comments or concerns or questions about the motion on the table? Can I just raise one? Back to the scope. I think there's more than one reason for blocking a site, and we just simply say obscene. But I can think of sites that aren't obscene but are inappropriate, and I just wonder if the word obscene is limiting, and we should say something like inappropriate.
Yeah.
We've said often that it has to be appropriate for the age group. I would recommend not using the word obscene because I think that's a little bit limiting.
The reason
Isn't that what the law says, though?
that's the reason we chose that phrasing. It came straight out of the statute.
And it seems like we could, this is not the only reason to block a site. And I think that if people have questions and say, this is not obscene, why did you block it? I think it can be explained to them. That's not the only reason the district chooses to block a site. But I like just cutting and pasting straight from the law to show our legislators.
I wonder, Mr. Dunford, would adding the word or
or inappropriate. Yep.
Would that work?
Yep.
We could say sites that contain obscene or inappropriate material, because I think we can go above the language in the law.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't want to take out obscene. I want them to know that everything that's obscene. But I just think we need to let them know that it's more than just obscene material.
Could we maybe make it even broader where we say to restrict access to internet and online sites, including those that contain obscene material? That way it gives us leeway to block any sites.
Obscene or inappropriate material?
I mean,
The proposal on the table is to say sites that contain obscene or inappropriate material.
so what I'm suggesting is to eliminate the word inappropriate and just give us a policy that allows us to block anything we want. But you're saying, because who defines inappropriate also? Acting? Is that inappropriate?
It just sounds a little Big Brotherish to me.
Okay.
To say we can restrict anything we want. And that just seems a little overbearing. I want parents to know we want your children to have access to material that they need, but we're not going to allow anything that's inappropriate for the age.
Okay.
Okay, I will insert the words or inappropriate.
Want to
And
oppose to that?
No, I like it.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Barnett, if you have a suggestion on the
Frequency?
rephrase there, that'd
I've
be
got
fine.
I've got a couple weeks to get it to you.
Yeah. In fact, would it be helpful to the board to bring this back to study session
Yes,
first, and then the business meeting?
Yeah, that's
So
the
then
plan,
if
is
there
we'll put it back on a study session agenda and then approval in the business meeting.
Okay.
Any other objections or suggested changes?
I do have a few comments. When I heard Mr. Coletta speak this morning, he talked about these sorts of acceptable use policies that other districts have, and that they're always full of don'ts and things like that. And I didn't get to see that flyer you held up, but the
Yeah.
4 things at the bottom, I loved how they were very much positive and do's. And so I wondered if we couldn't add a little bit more positivity into our acceptable use policy, just saying, aligning perhaps with our characteristics, right? We are having technology in our classrooms in order to help our students be curious thinkers and creative problem solvers, responsible citizens. We are ensuring that, with technology use comes, a proper digital citizenship.
Would you be comfortable if I took a crack at that in the scope section of this? We just talked about to restrict access to internet and online sites that contain obscene or inappropriate material. Perhaps what's in my head right now is perhaps that's followed up with the end goal here is students that graduate with knowing technology, that they can be respectful and be responsible. Let's put that
I love
right
that.
there.
I'll second it.
I would love that. But that's just me. How does everyone else
I
feel?
seconded it.
Oh,
Or we could
It was
put that,
awesome.
we could put it up, I guess, in the board policy section too, if you wish.
I would like it here where we're sending parents and students saying, this is
Yeah.
what you're agreeing to, right?
Yeah, I mean, like Roman.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I like it up in the board policy part too. Personally, I think because that's the higher level of what, as a board, we hope the technology or internet usage will do for our students, help
Yeah.
them become engaged citizens, curious thinkers, that kind of thing. Whereas I think it's less about the administration policy. It's more about the big picture. Am I getting this right about how these policies work? Okay.
Sure, yeah, I think.
Okay, I'll take a crack at that and propose that in the next study session.
Great, thank you.
Any other suggested changes or recommendations?
I just have a question. Is there a deadline by which, according to the law, we have to have this policy enacted?
I just figured we would do it as close to the beginning of the school year as we could.
The law is in effect, so we should have this when we can get to it.
Okay.
So waiting till the next study session, and then will we be able to approve it a month later, or how soon?
No, we,
Thank you.
Ah, okay.
the only reason we won't approve it in next business meeting is if something comes up in study session that causes you to stop it.
See. Thank
Right now, the plan is to approve it in 2 weeks. That's the motion on the table.
And even then, if there is a small tweak that we all agree on, it could still be approved in the business meeting.
Yeah. If we decide, no, we've got to make major revisions, we're not going to approve this today, we could take that action. But the plan is to approve it in our business meeting in 2 weeks. Therefore, let me take a vote on the motion. The motion on the table is to move forward, tweaking it as suggestions have come in. They'll present it to us in study session, and then we'll vote on it in the board meeting, in the public meeting next week. That's the motion on the table.
Does Nikki have any comments she wants?
Nikki, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, that sounds great.
Okay, those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Therefore, the passes at a vote of 7-0. Therefore, we will move forward for next meeting with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item D. It's 5:40. I think we can do item D in 20 minutes. We'll take a break at 6. Is that okay, board members?
Yeah.
All right, item D, as you remember, is a response to Utah Code 53G 611 1101 requiring the district to report to the board the status of certain male-female participation in our sports system. So that is what item D is. They are coming back. This is very early, a lot earlier than last year. Is that correct?
This is when we want to be doing it.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Before
we're-
school starts is what the law kind of lays out. So this
Okay.
is when we want to be doing it every year.
So we are correcting the timing, and this is from moving on. This is where the board can anticipate that information. But we're dealing with last year's information.
That's correct. That's
So
correct.
as I understand it, this is a no action presentation. This is information only, which may lead a board member to request action be taken in the future. But we are not anticipating taking a vote on this. We're going to have staff present what happened this last school year. You can ask whatever questions you want, and then we will just move on. But no action is anticipated that we're taking.
But the timing is good because correction can be made right now.
Yep. Okay, so I'm turning the time over to Mr. Brad Sorensen, who is our administrator of high schools. And we've also invited Mr. Brian Veazey, who is our district athletic director, and we'll turn the time over to them.
Yeah, I think you teed it up perfectly. That's all I was going to do, to tee it up. And so I'm going to turn it over right now then to Mr. Veazey, as is required to have this annual presentation kind of brought forward, as he's had a chance to work with each of our high schools and the athletic directors and the principals there to kind of gather and collect the information that you see in board books. So, Mr. Veazey.
Yeah, this report is a culmination of work being done by the high school principals, the assistant principals over athletics, the head administrative assistant, as well as the athletic directors, and in certain circumstances, the athletic administrative assistants. It also requires some work be done on the part of our staff. Brenda Grew and Nancy Balduck do a great job at helping us out. And then I do a lot of the compilation and a lot of the analysis and a lot of the action required by the code as a result of our findings. So again, this is just a basic summary. I know you had access to this in your board docs. This is just a basic summary of what we're required to report. Numbers and types of interscholastic sports, the number of students competing in gender-designated sports, participation discrepancies between males and females, the amount of spending that schools devote to each gender sport, reported in a total amount and a per student amount, and then a comparison and evaluation of designated practice and game locations to ensure that we're providing equal and or equitable access for all of our sports and for the sports that are gender designated. Again, really the only action that we take is that if there's a 10% discrepancy in the gender designated sports per school or by the district, then there's an action plan that needs to be taken, and we can share that with you in a minute. As a reminder, the only thing that I would mention on this particular slide is that as of last year, drill became a non-specific or a non-gender specific sport. And as a result of that, it's been removed from the data that has been used to generate this report. So we'll go ahead and go through that.
Did we have males join drill this year?
We did have a total of 4 males in the Jordan School District that participated in drill. So I would anticipate that that'll become more and more commonplace as we go. So looking at each one of the individual schools, Bingham High School, again, had 98 more boys participate in gender-specific sports than girls, which put them at a 12.93% discrepancy. That's why that has the X by that, so that we can identify that that's not within the 10%. You can kind of see the trends over the last 4 years, and you can kind of see, and you'll see this with all of the schools, that it's really kind of sporadic. I don't know that we could really evaluate or gather data that would allow us to know why there's differences in the percentages from year to year. I think it ultimately is just the student population and the cohort of students that's coming up, and whether they have greater numbers or lesser numbers, more that are inclined to participate in athletics than not.
You know, if drill was added into that, what that number would be?
I do. I know last year you asked or expressed interest in having the data with all sports included. I have generated a modified report that does reflect that, and I would be happy to share that with you for you to look at and to compare and contrast.
I was shocked to look at, or it looked like we did a way worse job, but they changed the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
So you really can't compare past years.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did they drop cheer or drill?
Well, they dropped drill from the report because it's not gender specific. So as I had mentioned, the UHSAA classifies their sports by gender or non-specific. So
started calling it girls drill.
Or if we only included drills and there was a boys drill team.
Yeah, for example, boys and girls can play football, boys and girls can play baseball, boys and girls can participate in cheer, boys and girls can participate in drill. With the other sports, it's either 4 boys or 4 girls, and the opposite gender does not have the opportunity to participate in them. So
raise your hand if you'd like that modified report sent to you. Just 3?
We can send it to everybody.
Yeah, I'll just send it to everybody, and you can look at it.
I'm adding that to the assignment list, so if you'll add that modified board report, great. Looking at last year, Bingham was a positive, and now it went to an X. So it just fluctuates so much from year to year.
Yeah. I mean, just to give an example, if you take Bingham High School, 98 more boys participated this year than girls. If you add back drill alone, you're looking at 36 girls. I think that's the drill team size of Bingham High School's drill team. You're looking at adding 36 girls to that, and it neutralizes that disparity. And that's why we're seeing a much bigger disparity this year than we would have last year in all of the schools, is because of that change in the bar, as Dr. Robinson mentioned. So.
Can I ask a related question? So with drill being taken out, and it was mentioned 4 boys participated in drill this year, I am interested in about how many girls participate in baseball and football each year. Do we know that?
We do have those numbers based on the information that I gathered. I can go back and look at that. I don't recall any girls participating in baseball. There definitely were boys participating in cheer and drill. And I think we generally have 2 to 3 girls throughout the district that participate in football. So very minimal numbers.
So it's a similar, like the drill being non-gender specific is very similar to baseball, and football being non-gender specific, in that there is a vast majority of one gender over the other participating in that activity.
Yeah, and rather than looking year to year whether or not we had someone of the opposite gender participate in that particular sport, we're simply going by what the requirements are and how those are designated at the UHSAA.
Yeah, and I guess what I was thinking of is it may seem like changing drill to non-gender specific is really skewing these numbers, but I have a feeling that making baseball non-gender, gender specific could possibly skew it even more. So in a different direction. So anyway.
And I think that's what the report, I think that's the report that Mr. Veazey will share will kind of show you, because we look at all of those sports with that report.
Yep.
Thanks.
So again, you can see Bingham High School, 98 more boys, 12.93%. I'll give you some details on what the action items will be for them and 2 other schools as we get through the numbers. You move on to Copper Hills High School. There was a 27 more boys participating for a 3.67% discrepancy. So they are in compliance according to this code. Harriman High School, you moved up to 89 more boys with a 10.89% discrepancy, slightly outside of the 10%, but outside of the 10% nonetheless. And so they've been listed as a non-compliant according to the 10% expectation. Mountain Ridge, 37 more boys for a 5.02% discrepancy. Then you have Riverton, who is 126 more boys, which puts them at as a 15.04% discrepancy. And then you have West Jordan with 49 more boys, which puts them at a 7.84% discrepancy. And then the Jordan School District collectively, you had 426 more boys participate in the non-gender specific sports than you did girls, which puts us at a 9.45%, still within that 10%, but obviously a lot closer to the 10% than we've been in the years past. As action identified for the discrepancy, as I had mentioned, that if there's a discrepancy of 10% or greater, the school develops an action plan to address the discrepancy. That is a conversation that I will initiate with those 3 schools, Bingham, Harriman, and Riverton. I'll talk to the principals. I'll review all of the presented data as well as the raw data behind the presentation. We'll talk a little bit about each sport. And we'll talk a little bit about the options that are available to them for adjusting or for putting forth some effort in trying to equalize the participation numbers. There are some things that can be done, but that are not advisable. as listed on there with the X. And then there are other things that can be done that are certainly advisable and that we would encourage all of our schools to do, but we'll ask them to put a little bit more of a concerted effort towards. And then they'll create a school plan and they'll submit that to me. I'll pass that on to Mr. Sorensen, and then we'll allow him to decide what he chooses to do with that. Here's the money aspect of that. As required, we have to report it as a whole and then by student. You can see that overall, you can kind of just see this gives you an idea of how much is being spent and the disparity from one school to another. I think that's information that this gives you. I think there's a lot of information that you can glean from this, but I think ultimately for reporting purposes, in the Jordan School District with the non-gender specific sports, $1,912,775.42 were spent versus the girls spending at $1,880,794.59. If you look at the per student for boys sports, it averaged $775.03, and the per student in girls sports was $921.06. The one question that I had in looking at this is how is it possible that we have more money spent in boys sports, but it's less per boy than in per girl? It's just simply because of the numbers. We have more boys that we're dividing that 1.9 million with versus fewer number of girls that we're dividing the 1.8 million on. Moving on, the other thing that it requires us to report is the practice facilities as well as the game facilities. I know there were some questions about this last year, so I went back to the athletic directors and had them fine-tune this. What I have assessed in looking at what's been reported to me by the schools, it looks like there's a pretty good balance in the facilities that are being used across sports, as well as the facilities that are being used across gender-specific sports. And that's something that's important to us. It's something that I emphasize with the athletic directors on a regular basis. It's something that I provide them training on, so that as they're the ones responsible for putting calendar requests into the school schedule, they can keep an eye on that and make sure that everybody's getting equal opportunity to practice and or play on their preferred field or court or mat or space. Getting through that. So ultimately, just kind of as a summary, we provided you the number and type of interscholastic sports. We've provided you with the participation rates for gender designated sports. We've provided you information on spending devoted to each gender designated sport, and we've shown you kind of what the designated practice and game locations look like across sports and specifically across those gender specific sports. Again, overall participation for the district, while it varied a little bit more, it's still within that threshold of 9.45%. And there was an increase in the number of schools last year compared to this year that did not fall within that 10%. I think last year we had one school, this year we have 3 schools. A lot of that can be attributed to the reclassification of drill to a non-specific sport. With that, if there are any questions or further discussion, we'd be happy to entertain those.
You've got a question, and I'm not sure if there's an answer to it, but back on the total spending per student, it was still rather concerning to me, especially at Harriman High School, the giant discrepancy between the amount paid per boys, per girls sports, and because we're also taking out those, undesignated, gender sports, I have a hard time figuring out why, the track uniforms are basically the same, the soccer uniforms are basically the same. Why are the girls spending so much more than the boys?
That's a great question. And I don't know if the data that we have would definitely... the one thing that I can tell you is obviously if you look at the total spending, there's more spent on girls, and if you look at the per student spending, there's more spent on girls. The thing that I would suggest maybe we'd have to go back and look at is just the disparity in the numbers. With 89 more boys, that means that with, as you're doing the math, you're taking the amount spent on girls and dividing it by fewer girls than versus the amount spent on boys and dividing it by the total number of boys. That's the only thing that I can, off the top of my head, think would skew those numbers and create that disparity. But yeah, it is a good question, and I don't know that we have a definitive answer for
What
that.
I can tell you is coaches are very different, right? I mean, so it depends on kind of what they anticipate or envision for their program. Brian and I both have experienced that as principals at the high school, that you work with different individuals that have different ideas. But I think that's certainly something that we can bring to Harriman's attention and have Brian follow up with and ask that question.
It's a fee discussion. That's the origin, is it's a fee discussion.
Yeah, it's a fee
and
discussion.
we noticed the same thing, because what we're talking about is the fee to play each one of these sports. You go back to the fee schedule we approved, and you'll see that's where this money is being requested. So the girls' teams at those schools are asking for higher fees than the boys' teams at those schools. We saw it in the fee discussion.
Oh, I see what you're
$100
saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the other determinant. That would be the other
Okay.
variable, because a lot of it depends on the school community. Within certain communities, parents have a higher level of demand for the quality of
Swag.
versus another school, and so that could be. It's certainly, just to kind of clarify what Mr. Dunford is saying, there's not a disparity in the participation fee. If there's a participation fee that's established for baseball, that same participation fee is established for softball. We want to make sure that those participation fees remain equal in like sports, boys versus girls. Where the difference is exactly that. The other required fees, where somebody may be getting a sweatsuit and a gym bag and shoes. Another school might be keeping the gym bags and repurposing them year after year after year to keep costs down. And so there is definitely a discrepancy there.
Although baseball is available to boys and girls.
Yeah, maybe that's not a good.
So I have a question, and this is a tricky question, but I am curious, as each year as I've heard this report, of the time cost of compiling this report. If you have any idea about how many man hours it requires of our
You have
professionals
to have an equal amount of
to do this.
man hours and female hours, right?
Well, I'm using man as a non-gender
But
specific
I'll let Brian
term.
answer that, as he kind of oversees that, but it's significant.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I would suggest that, again, I kind of mentioned at the very beginning the number of people and the different, the different functions that are involved in this. I think if you have, a principal obviously spends some time, I would say probably a half a day, reviewing the reports with their administrative assistant to make sure that everything's accurate and that money has been placed in the proper account. I think then you have the administrative assistants that fill out their spreadsheet that feeds into the aggregate spreadsheet. I would say they probably spend at least a half a day, if not a full day, on that. And then you have obviously athletic directors who have to go through their data to gather the numbers. They're the ones that bring up the number of participants. Again, probably half a day to a full day, depending on the number of distractions that they run into. Our staff, Brenda and Nancy, probably spend at least a full day pulling numbers into the aggregate report. And then I truthfully probably spend if you're talking about hours, I probably spend a good 2 to 3 days making sure that the formula in every cell is accurate, make sure it's pulling the right information from the other reports into the aggregate report, making sure that all the numbers are accurate, and then obviously generating the report. And so again, if you do the math, there's 6 schools, and if you figure that there's at least a full day of man hours, so if you employee hours, if you consider that there's at least a full day of employee hours, probably 2 full days at the school level, and then probably another 4 days at the district level. to get this all put together and to verify its accuracy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I can see value in this report. I find it interesting. And I like to bring this up because I believe it is an unfunded mandate from our state legislature. So thank you.
And one more response, Aaron, is I looked into the discrepancy a year ago, and we now require them to pay for their own travel. And if you've got 89 more boys participating at Harriman, you can fit 50 people on a bus, but you're still going to take a bus if there's fewer girls. So that those 12 girls have to pay for a bus versus the 50 boys have to pay for a bus.
Okay.
It's going to come out to a different cost per person, male and female. So it really just boils down to the more people that participate, the lower the cost when it comes to transportation. So that's another one of the
If I could
reasons.
add to that as well, just looking, there's also the optional costs, and some of the teams have quite a high option, and so I think it's
That's
hard
the
to
fee.
know whether or not more girls are opting into what's not required.
Yeah, I think they're excellent examples of why there would be a skew in those numbers.
Any other questions?
I do have one more question. In the facility use pages where it was talking about swimming, I was under the impression that there was a facility at the South Jordan Rec Center for a pool that was going to be available to students. Maybe it wasn't open last year. Is it not open yet?
It's not open yet. So
Okay.
that's in the process, and we're hoping to have Riverton gain access to that with Bingham High School as well
Okay.
this upcoming swim season.
I wasn't sure when it was going to
Yeah.
open.
Yeah, the projected completion date is September, which will be almost late, but perfect timing
Okay.
for them to
Thank
get
you.
in there.
I had a question.
Daryl, I saw you raise your
Either
hand.
way, I ask this probably every year, but is there a penalty if we don't comply?
There is not.
So we just have to
This is an
report.
information-only report.
And I think that's fine. I don't like this every year because, like as Ms. Dean just mentioned, add baseball, it throws off the numbers. But also if you add choir and theater and HOSA and DECA, it would throw it off the other way. So my biggest thing, and maybe that's why I would love to see an activities report instead of a sports report, is every kid getting an opportunity to participate in what they want to participate in our district. And so I hope never any of the resolutions is let's limit boys or girls so we can get the numbers to work, but rather than expand opportunities for all kids to be involved in whatever activity. Because I think that's the key, is what activities do we offer, which I think is one of the things that entices people to public education, traditional public education, and then what can we do to expand that. So I don't have a problem per se with this, but a report's telling you what they want you to say in the report, but it doesn't give you the whole picture.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And just going back to this page, I think in brainstorming all of the ways that you could adjust those numbers to comply with this 10% requirement, there are things that we could do that would probably have a pretty significant and pretty immediate impact, but it would require limiting the number of opportunities for students. And that's why those have the big red X's by them, because yes, it's an option, but no, we're not doing it.
I saw what we did a few years ago, encouraging girls to wrestle at Bingham, and that impact. And I know girls now at Bingham that are doing that because our emphasis was there instead of joining with another team. So those are great for us. I think that should come out of this, but the report's saying what they want the report to say. So thank you.
Brian.
This was my question.
Okay.
This page, I would be against those two that have X's on them, and so I just wanted to make sure that was voiced, and hopefully travels down. And
We don't like them either.
Okay.
So we're not planning to do those.
We include them in my discussion with the principals in the interest of full disclosure, but we make it very clear that those are not options to be considered. And how can we support you in focusing on the three options that we're recommending that should be considered and that are most effective with what we're trying to accomplish?
And we're pretty confident that one or more of those three options will solve our problems.
It
It'll
will
work
allow us to
towards.
put forth best effort
Yeah.
to get there.
Yeah.
Nikki, do you have a question? Assuming she doesn't. Any other questions? So because this is an information
No, I have no questions. We're
Okay.
great.
Thank you, Nikki. The main point here is that they're doing what they need to do, and they have provided the board information. Now, if you're concerned about any of the information that you've received, I would recommend a phone call to the superintendent, or to push it any further. If you'd like to come back with any action items at a future agenda item, you may. But this was really just be informed. I look at these numbers and I understand exactly what's going on, so I don't feel a concern. And that was the point, is we know what's going on. Those of you who are concerned may take action at a future date, but not today. So, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate the report. I like it in August. The last 2 years have been very much better than the previous time when we got it in
September.
April. Yeah.
No, I think originally the very first year it was April, and then because it said at the beginning of the year, so we tried to shift that. We did September. But
So I think
this is when we'll get them.
I like it. I like it. 1st of August is much better. All right, board member, food is here. We're going to take a brief break. There is food in the fireman's area. Let's try and be back at 6:30. Thank you. Okay, that'd be great. Welcome back. We are going to move on to item number F. Move this mic away. E, excuse me. We are going to go back to our agenda, item E. Once again, this is a policy. The superintendent and his staff are bringing recommended changes to our policy AA417 on fundraising based on our input at a previous meeting. The desired outcome here will be we can either move forward with his recommended changes, we can send them back for modification, or we can take no action whatsoever. So I'm going to turn the time over to Dr. Godfrey, who's going to present his proposed changings. I'll give you time to ask any questions you have. I'll look for a motion on how we move forward, then we'll have a discussion before we take a vote. So Dr. Godfrey, policy AA417 on fundraising.
Thank you very much. We have made changes that are intended to reflect the board's discussion last time we went over these policies. And the purpose of reviewing these policies in the first place is to just bring greater clarity and to separate the policies out so that if you're working with elementary or a special school, you know exactly where to go, instead of trying to sift through policy that is intended to address every possible situation. We appreciate the input from the board in honing this language so that it's more precise and reflects what we hope to see in schools. Excuse me. So let's start with the elementary and special education schools. So the subject would be fundraising for elementary and special education schools. And I'm just going to go through this and read every word. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go over only the highlighted spots that we've changed in response to feedback from the board. So we talk about where this policy is intended to provide schools with the ability to raise funds without unduly pressuring students, families, and or community members, which is something we talked about. Under Roman numeral 2, section A, number 4, we again say students and families must not be compelled to sell or purchase products. And then number 5, students are not to miss class to participate in fundraisers unless approved by school administration, which gives some flexibility to, as an entire school, organize things that way. Parent donations, this is a good clarification under, I believe it is 2D2, monetary donations. The word monetary is added. Monetary donations must be accounted for and recorded through the school office. And then see policy AA408, fees for additional information regarding donations and school fees. PTA may request parent donations for PTA-sponsored events or activities, including volunteer time, supplies, and materials. So it just clarifies that PTA can ask for help on their events. Any questions about the elementary and special education schools policy? They're all numbered the same, but we'll number them appropriately once we get to that point. Any thoughts about that one? And just so that those listening know, the board has had access to this and been able to review it previous to now. Okay.
Let me ask, maybe it's in there. We limit them to like one fundraiser?
Yeah, it's limited. It's limited in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't go over all of the elements, only the changes from last time.
So is that just to not place an undue burden on
That's right.
families? Is there a way for them to get an exception if they have a good second fundraiser? Can we do that?
We don't, generally. They could, any policy can be appealed to the board, but
It has to be a board approved exception.
I would not approve it unless the board approved it formally.
I just don't know. I've had some feedback that boxes them in a little bit.
What do you mean?
Sometimes if there might be two smaller fundraisers that might be better than one bigger.
Mike's on.
Yeah, 4.
Under B, yeah, 2B, they get one
Oh,
fundraiser
gotcha.
sponsored by the PTA, one fundraiser sponsored by school community council, and then two
charitable
fundraisers.
I think I'm talking more like when I talk to PTA people. They're like one's really limiting, but school there's
They could always work with their school community council.
And I thought that that was part of the state PTA bylaws too.
That's what I would.
And so I think that that's where the limit on PTA,
That's how it got into
PTSA
this
comes in
policy.
also.
But I do think PTA bylaws allow for smaller fundraisers that raise 500 or less,
Yeah, which
in
I
addition to their large.
Like the
usually
spirit
those
nights.
are like spirit nights.
Yeah, or if they do,
the business partnership is what they're called.
or like swag sales at games is an ongoing type of fundraiser.
So they're not counted in the one.
Those are different under Utah PTA fundraising procedures. I believe they can have like a business partnership.
This is not the district administration saying there should only be one PTA and one school community council fundraiser. This is the board policy limiting that so that the impact on parents and communities is limited. PTA says one well-planned fundraising event will usually raise the funds needed to fulfill the goals and objectives of the PTA for the year. But it doesn't say local PTAs shall be limited to one fundraiser per year, anything like that. So, Dr. Robinson's question is something you can address now if you want to say, all right, it's 2 school community council and 2 PTA, or there's a specifically outlined path for appeal if they want to do more. But
I like that wording. Read that again.
well,
It's theirs though, right?
yeah. I mean,
Because it didn't put a definite, right?
yeah. I mean, I can
Even if it's phrased. It's not
see
phrased.
they
go back and
leave
look for it.
open the possibility of
Having a second if it's appropriate.
unlimited fundraisers. Theoretically, we're trying to bring greater clarity with this language, but it's up to the board how many you think or how many fundraisers are appropriate for.
Raise your hand if
elementary
you're
school.
interested in changing Part B, Roman numeral A, Part B, in the number of fundraisers.
I'm not in favor of it, only because I think this is specifically for involving students in the sale of products or services, and I wouldn't want to have elementary students have to do that twice.
Right.
I am only in favor of it because it's been brought to my attention a lot, but not recently.
Now, I will clarify there are business partnerships that are available still. You can say we've got our Chick-fil-A night. Come dressed as a cow and we donate $2 per nugget for the elementary school. I think that's how it works. Isn't that right, Aaron?
Not exactly.
I think I've got that correct.
I'd probably be in favor of, while we're reviewing this, that we actually take it to PTAs and school community councils and make sure that they're okay with it, make sure that maybe they can bring some clarity. I don't know, I've been approached with it a lot, but not recently, probably not within the last year.
We're going to move forward as is. If you want to recommend a change to, on a future day, bring it back to the board and we can put this back on. But for this
Can I
time,
ask a clarifying question?
Nikki?
So I'm wondering if we are defining fundraisers differently than schools are. When it comes to smaller fundraisers that don't bring in a ton of money. So for example, if they're going to run a concession stand along with their little school play at an elementary school, or like you've mentioned, spirit nights. PTA doesn't view that as a fundraiser because it's less than $500 income. And I'm curious if we are working on the same definition. And I'm also curious if this could potentially pit school community council and PTAs against each other if there's only one fundraiser.
Well, there's one each.
Yeah.
Perfect. And are they allowed to do smaller things like that?
The limitation is there's only one fundraiser per year, which can involve students in the sale of a product or service.
But those business
Okay,
partnerships
so-
are allowed.
If an adult is selling concessions, that doesn't involve students?
That's what the policy says.
that's how you guys hear that, because
Yes.
that seems vague to me.
Any desire to make a change?
Where does it say that, Bryce?
The last sentence of B.
Okay. I mean, I'm probably okay with that because I see the intent of the policy is not to put an undue pressure on students and families, but I also don't want to prohibit them from earning the kind of money to make a difference in their school. So I guess I've always not really focused in on that involvement of a student.
Also, sorry. Sometimes there's also only so much money you're going to make. You can make it over one fundraiser or over two. You know, two fundraisers doesn't always bring in double the money, I guess is what I would say.
So back to Nikki's question, as I reread this, I'm not sure it's entirely clear. The first sentence under B says, the school can have a total of 4, only one of which can be students selling something. So technically, that fundraising at the play, even if done by adults, would be considered one of the 4 according to this policy, right? It just wouldn't be counted the one that students are selling.
That's correct.
So do we need, does the board want to have that count as one of the 4? And
Well,
when I say that, I mean selling concessions at a play, something like that.
Well, as you read it, that only
you want-
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, only one fundraiser. So as you read that closer, that only one of those 4 can involve students. So they're all involved in the charity runs usually.
But they're not.
We're talking elementary.
Not selling
but-
something, a
If you-
product or a service at the fun run.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
If you want to be sure that they can sell concessions at a musical and it doesn't cost it doesn't take away from anything else, then you can say, you could add that to the list of approved fundraisers and say 1 fundraiser sponsored by the PTA, 1 fundraiser sponsored by the community council, 2 charitable fundraisers, and then explain that schools can also sell concessions at performances for a profit at the elementary level.
Or just that that's not included in this restriction.
Right. Or that it's not considered a fundraiser.
Nikki, what do you think about that? You asked the question.
Honestly, my concern is always, are we aligning our policy with our practice? And that's why I asked the question, because what I see doesn't necessarily align with what we're saying here. I don't want to get into the weeds. I'm not saying that the policy is off here, but just I want to encourage schools to follow policy.
Because I'm a little confused now about all these different questions and things. I would like to take this to regional PTA since I go to their meetings. I might ask them if they, how they're feeling about this. I don't know. How would that be? Yes, I don't think I have time to get to JPAC though.
But you have the contact, so maybe you can send them
That's
a
true.
message and if they were, because that's where I'm hearing it from, both those, when I go to PTA meetings and when I go to community council meetings in the past. But like I said, probably not this last year, but it was heavy the 2 years before that.
Just because the time that I've spent in the elementary schools helping with fundraisers and on PTA, I liked that there was 1 per group, 1 for SEC, 1 for PTA, and it seemed clear to us like, oh, we can't sell concessions because we already did our fundraiser this year, and we can't sell the memory book because we already did the fun run, and so I don't know. I felt like it was clear, but if some people need different kind of clarity or want more options, I just don't want to put too much pressure on families and students to have more fundraisers.
So Aaron, we're going to move forward with this as they've recommended it. You've got 2 weeks if you want to make a change to come back. But are there any questions about, regarding the proposed changes? So Aaron's going to, I'm going to make that list. Aaron's going to take an assignment to take this to the regional PTA. If you say, well, we're not going to make any changes, then no need to do anything. But if you'd like to further change it, you work with the superintendent. Okay. All right, let's move on to middle schools.
Okay. Let's see. Again, we said families instead of patrons, and in Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2A4, students and families must not be compelled. Students are not to miss class to participate unless approved by school administration. So far, all of that, those are the same questions as we put in place for elementary and special schools. And then under Roman numeral 2, letter B, number 4 and 5, instead of saying one major school fund, well, 1 through 6, let's just talk about those. I'll just list those out. This is the list of the up to 5 fundraisers every year as outlined below. 1 school-wide fundraiser that involves students in the sale of a product or service. 1 fundraiser sponsored by the school community council. 1 fundraiser sponsored by the PTA. So that's the 3 so far. And then I'm going to skip down 2 charitable fundraisers. So those are the 5. And then under number 5, it says, if not used for the sale of a memory book, the PTA can collect a profit for producing and selling a school memory book.
Cannot collect a profit. Right?
Cannot, sorry. If not used for the sale of a memory book, the PTA cannot collect a profit for producing and selling a school memory book.
I'm a little confused by that.
That phrasing is incorrect. If not used for a fundraiser, the PTA cannot collect a profit for producing and selling a school memory book. In other words, what we've clarified is you can't make a profit on your memory book unless you count it as your fundraiser, which also means that if you don't make a profit, then it doesn't count as your fundraiser.
So and each school sets their cost on what the memory book costs then?
I believe that's accurate, yes. They do.
If I'm in middle school, I can just say, hey, the memory book's $100. Is it capped?
I don't know that it's capped, but Mike's going to look that up really quickly. But some schools use it as a fundraiser, some don't, so the price is going to vary on that.
A high school one isn't it on a fee schedule? Middle school.
A high school one is.
Is middle school have it on the fee schedule?
I don't know. That's what Mike's looking up.
Could we make item 5 instead 4A? It just makes more sense to me to have it underneath the PTA fundraiser than a separate.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. And we'll make that change. If not used for a fundraiser, the PTA cannot collect a profit for producing and selling a school memory book. So we'll change that phrasing, and I agree with putting it, just tucking it under, which one did you say, make it kind of a 4A?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. Does the board feel good about that? And then under D, monetary donations again, the fees policy, and PTA may request parent donations for PTA-sponsored event or activities, like in the elementary. So they're really the same changes as to the elementary policy and the additional clarification about memory books, which provides for that flexibility. It was Joel P. Jensen that used memory books as their fundraiser at one point, or talked about that.
It's just last year was the first year for a long time when they did not use memory books as a fundraiser, and it's been talked about anyway, not having that be the fundraiser.
Now, the difference between a PTA, a memory book at the middle school level, and the yearbook at the high school level is that the yearbook is actually, the school creates that, and that's why it is on the fee schedule. But for middle schools, it's not on the fee schedule
That makes sense.
because it's a PTA function. So I don't believe that we do cap that. I don't think we say what they can charge because it's up to PTA to do that.
If they charge too much, they won't make very much. So that's a self-correcting issue. Okay, any other questions on middle school? All right, high schools?
Okay, Roman numeral 1, we made the change to include the word families. We did that under Roman numeral 2, A4. Under 5, we also said students are not to miss class to participate in fundraisers unless approved by school administration. Under B, 2B, high school fundraisers. High schools are not limited to a set number of fundraisers, and may also participate in one annual school-wide charity drive fundraiser. And then under C are all the rules about a
Great job.
school-wide fundraiser. Number 3 is, as an exception, a school may raise up to $10,000 to be used for the local needs of the community. That was the Sub for Santa example where you can keep $10,000 at the school and use that for community needs. And then parent donations under D, we added monetary to describe the donations and reference the fees policy and referenced it again later in the policy. So those are the changes to the high school policy. Changes since last time. There are a lot of changes that we discussed in the previous meeting for those listening that want to reference that. That was our June meeting.
On the school-wide high school charitable drive,
Yes,
all that is new, right?
all that's new.
Remind me just maybe in a nutshell what problems we're solving with all of that. What were we seeing that we needed to put this in policy?
A main problem was odd jobs, where kids go out in groups and go do service for people in the community in exchange for a donation for the cause. And there were not, that was against policy because you weren't supposed to go door to door. And we all kind of knew it was against policy, and to Ms. George's point, we wanted, you always think, okay, do we need to change our practice to align with policy, or do we need to align policy to practice? And in this case, we have not had serious problems with the odd jobs. It's just that it was against policy. So we wanted to be sure to make that possible to do within policy. We also wanted to clarify somebody has to be wearing a uniform or a sweater or something that shows that they're associated with the school. We wanted to limit the number of hours expected of students so that it's similar to what we allow for extracurricular activities based on UHSAA's requirements. So we just wanted to limit student time a little bit and provide more structure for the odd jobs, protect class time a little bit more, some of those adjustments, how the funds can be used. You can't do a charitable fundraiser that is entirely used for the community, but you can keep up to $10,000 to meet needs of families at the school. Those are some of the main changes. Just things that we'd seen over time that we either wanted to eliminate, reduce, or embrace. We're embracing odd jobs with this policy.
Can I rewind to item 3 in this section? Do we need to identify specifically as a Sub for Santa would it work to just let it read, a school may raise up to $10,000 to be used for the local needs of the community as approved by a pre-established bidding and approval process?
We can certainly make that change. I know we talked about that last time. Sub for Santa is just kind of a term that people tend to understand that you're providing for a family, but I have no problem with removing that. We can easily do that if the board would like to take out that.
I'm just trying to read it like I was a high school senior who was trying to plan my year. And in my high school senior mind, I'm like, oh, a Sub for Santa means I'm giving Christmas presents to a family.
That may
It's
be
my
part of
hope
what happens,
that
but
lots
it's not.
of high school seniors are going to be reading this policy.
How many of you want to take that out?
I would feel comfortable if it was in parentheses, for example, a Sub for Santa, but not restricted to.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay, we can make that change.
Any other concerns, questions, changes?
Thanks for your help with this. And
All right, let me take a motion. You can do this separately, one each, or we can make one motion for all three. I'm looking for a motion as to how you want to proceed.
I move that we instruct staff to move forward with making discussed adjustments to these policies for board vote at our next business meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Suzanne Woods and a second from Aaron Barrow that we are going to move forward with approval at our next meeting pending the changes that we have discussed in this meeting. Any further question, comment, or concern?
I'm curious if Erin feels comfortable that she has adequate time to reach out to PTAs by the next meeting.
If I'm going to reach out to them tomorrow, and if I can't get an adequate answer or they want more time from me, I will be in contact with Superintendent Godfrey on how we might proceed, depending on their questions and concerns.
And we will put this on a study session for our next meeting. And if at that and on the business meeting agenda, if during the study session this board decides to not move forward with approval at the meeting, we can do that.
So we could approve middle school and high school and hold off on elementary, just because I think there's some time sensitivity with high schools to plan.
Right. But as of right now, we are not making changes to that section, but what we do at our next meeting is our prerogative. Is that everyone's understanding? Any other further questions?
I don't think that we want to keep moving forward, but we don't need to do so at an artificially rapid pace, because most of this, that's why I was kind of squinting, like I'm trying to think through whether we're making more dramatic changes than I'm remembering. Mostly we're aligning with practice rather than asking everyone to change their practice to match policy. The $10,000 is the biggest change, but schools are anticipating that. So I think that we want to do it as quickly as possible while still getting all of the input and having all the discussion we need. But this mostly clarifies rather than dramatically altering what the process ought to be for moving forward with fundraisers. It's not like we're going to cut a fundraiser that they can't do anymore, and if we don't do it quickly enough, then they'll plan a fundraiser that they can't do. I think we'll be okay if we need to take a little extra time.
But for the plan, based on this motion, is we're going to bring it forward at our next meeting. And Aaron has every right to, at that moment, make a motion to postpone the approval.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, the motion once again is that we're going to move forward with all three policies for our next meeting, pending the changes that we've recommended. Those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That passes at a 6-0 or 7-0 vote. So we will move forward we will see this policy again in our study session at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, that leads us to a continued discussion on our GP policies. So I remind you that we are going through our GP policies. I'm actually going to turn this discussion over to Erin and let her run the discussion since I'm conducting the meeting. Is that okay with you? If you want to pull up GP 113, 114, and 115. And again, same idea. We can take no action. We can assign this to the policy committee, or we can, actually, I think that would be the preferred action, is to submit suggested changes to the policy committee. So we're not going to be taking a vote on this. We're simply going to share your thoughts and feelings about these three policies with the policy committee. Erin, take it away.
Okay. Let's just start with GP 113, and we'll just start at the top and work our way down. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns with that first paragraph. No, I did. So I had a question on the second sentence. It says this includes any group which is formed by board action, whether or not it is called a committee, and regardless whether the group includes board members. So what would be an example of a committee that was created by the board but did not include board members?
We've had LEAC make decision, move forward without a board member necessarily leading the discussion. You could technically step out of any one of those meetings and it would be still a function of the board. I think that's the idea here.
Okay. Any other questions on that first paragraph, or we can move down to A? Or we can jump around. I've got a question on A2, the very end of that section. It says, unless it is a board committee of the whole. What does that mean, board committee of the whole?
For example, sometimes we meet as, what's it called, a building?
Local building authority.
Local building authority. We meet in other entities more than just the board.
So is it saying
on the same section? If that answered, sorry, Erin, please keep going.
I am not clear on what was that you gave an example of?
When we do a lease revenue bond, we do not make that decision as a school board. We make that decision as a local building authority. And that would be an example of it's binding. That is a binding decision. Even though we're not doing it as a school board, it's a binding decision by our policy.
We also do that, and I can't remember what it was, but we have a seat on redevelopment agencies, and we have one of 10 seats or something.
The idea here is when all 7 are expected to be present, it is a binding authoritative meeting.
So could we say decisions made by a committee do not carry the authority of the full board unless a quorum of the board is present?
Because you can't do that on that one committee.
So I think the local building authority is a formal entity registered with the state of Utah. That does have voting. It has officers. It has representatives. So it certainly takes action. Formal minutes are taken there. I wonder if committee of the whole is meant to be more of a discussion item instead of those formal ones. like the local building authority. For example, I wonder if committee of the whole is a lot of study session type conversations where this is my use of committee of the whole is more of an informal thing where the entire body is trying to discuss things more informally than formally.
So maybe like our summit, for example, that was kind of more informal, discussing things. Would that?
I think several other boards call study sessions a committee of the whole,
Oh,
as well as like city
It's-
council.
It's in Robert's Rules of Order, Committee of the Whole.
we need to change our practice to fit our policy.
Well, I don't remember the board ever using the term committee of the whole for any of its discussions. Frankly, the only time I recall this ever being used was during the Constitutional Convention. I know they used it there to try to have more informal conversations, but I don't recall the school board using this device, so I'm not sure it's necessary here. But
What if we scratch from unless to the end? And my other recommendation would be to change the word decisions to recommendations. So it would read, recommendations made by a committee do not carry the authority of the full board, period.
That makes more sense to me.
And it really, I think it's important that the role of a committee is making recommendations and doing research so that the board can make decisions. So I think replacing that word is a priority for me.
I have a question about that. So decisions made by a committee, I would think of that also as the committee asking the staff members who are part of that committee to do some research and bring back information, just like here in the study session. We, as a board, ask staff to, like, give staff assignments and ask them to bring stuff back. And so, anyway, this is, I can't remember if that is addressed in any other part of this, assignments to the committee members, because I have been at committee meetings where the staff members have been asked to bring something back to the next committee meeting, and because all three or two of the three committee members that were board members asked for it. So does that relate to this at all, or no? Or does that need to have any part of the policy? Probably not.
It's addressed in policy, but not in this policy.
Okay.
Here's where it's addressed in BSC 202. An individual board member may communicate with, but will not make extensive, excessive requests of staff. That's the spirit of the board, it takes board authority to ask staff to do anything excessive or extensive.
So committee could ask a staff member to do something that takes less than 30 minutes.
And the committee acting on the board's assignment to fulfill a responsibility can extend the board's authority to the staff. The committee's been given the assignment to do something, and that committee needs this information to do it, then that's an extension of the board's authority to gather that information.
Okay, so I feel like in 3, it says, this needs a segue, but it's supposed to read, accordingly, board advisory committees cannot exercise authority over staff. Because the superintendent works for the full board, he or she will not be required to obtain approval of a board committee before taking executive action. 3 is rather confusing, but I interpreted that as, not asking staff for super in-depth info. But when it comes to a committee meeting like facilities or finance, that committee does ask staff for more information for them to be able to make a recommendation to the full board. So maybe in 3, we could clarify something.
Okay, let's just note it and leave it for the policy committee to come back with a proposal.
Okay.
And I don't even know why I brought up my thing. I don't feel like policy should be overly prescriptive about what board members should say or do in the committee meetings. So
I think it is okay, though, to just clarify a little bit of what committees can be doing, should be asking staff, but not overstepping. I don't know. I felt like it was a good comment. I appreciated it.
We're not going to take a stopwatch out, but it gives us some protection that we're not going to go into this huge, deep study because we feel like one board member is asking us to do that.
Yep.
Keep going. Any other items on GP 113? Nothing? Okay. Let's move on to GP 114. Anything on GP 114, board representation on district committees and other organizations? I'll go first. I would like to add another letter, G, reading something along the lines of, if individual board members are approached by an organization to participate on a committee or board, that JSD board member will inform the board as a whole, seeking questions or comments about that position/organization. Just because that happened to me last year. I was approached by an organization to come to one of their meetings and potentially be a member, and so
as a representative, of the joint.
Yes.
I think that is a great addition. I like it.
Thoughts on?
Can you say it one more time?
If individual board members are approached by an organization to participate on a committee or board, maybe I should add, as a representative of Jordan School District, that board member will inform the board as a whole, seeking questions or comments from the board about the position and the organization.
And approval.
And approval. Questions?
So is that an outside board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm on a charter school board, you all would have to approve that.
If you are on
If you're
that
the Jordan-
board as a
representative
representative
Jordan
of Jordan
District.
School District.
So let's suppose what's it called? The West Side Development Group wants a JSD representative. It would fall into this.
So I'm on a Remember September committee for this 9/11.
Not as a Jordan School District
I'm not
representative.
going as an assignment, although they probably asked me because I'm a board. But the district is represented.
Yeah, I think they asked
Get
for
that
you,
one.
not a member of the board.
They asked for me.
Yeah.
It's just a really weird fine line, but
I think if we can clarify that they want to participate as a representative of Jordan.
How about as an ongoing representative?
Say more about that.
as an
Hey, this is a
official.
one-time meeting. We'd love to hear your perspective versus you are a member of our committee and you're going to meet with us over and over and over and over again.
So you think this should only apply if it is multiple times instead of just
Yeah.
once?
I would imagine many of us are going to be asked as a Jordan School District member, as a board member, to attend a meeting.
So I was asked to be on the slopes or whatever when we were developing the point. And I served for a short time. I just notified the board, but I don't know. It's just a fine line. And were they asking me because I'm a member of the board? If they ask me personally, I think that's them asking for me individually. If they're asking me for it as a board member, they're going to go through the superintendent or board president.
I had a community member come straight to me because they knew me from PTA meetings, SEC meetings. They knew I was their school board rep. So they said, hey, I'm in this organization. Would you come and let us know what's going on in Jordan School District? And like, can we ask you questions? And so I was like, yeah, I think. And so I asked Nikki, I was like, I'm just going to let everybody know that I was asked. And so
you weren't a member of the committee, you were just participating in their meeting?
I participated in the meeting, yes. I was not clear if they wanted me to be an ongoing member or not, but I have gone to at least one meeting. So,
See, to me, that's the difference between ongoing member of and visitor. But we'll work with the wording and bring it back.
Anytime somebody is invited to represent the board, it is courtesy for you to bring that up in your board member comments. I just think that should be our practice, that we went here, we spoke about district issues, and we let each other know.
Is there a policy that would be better suited for that, for explaining that courtesy, or is that just not something we'd want to put in writing?
could we make G and do it an ongoing, and then do a little A underneath saying, you know, if as courtesy board, you could report on one-offs.
I do think it's different being asked to represent the board at a meeting versus being on a committee, and so differentiating between those two, if this is the right place for that. I would like that.
Harriman has a committee called Friends of Harriman, and I've gone several times, and I've not told the board, but I think I'm going because I'm a friend, but I'm probably a friend because I'm a board member. Maybe it wouldn't have me be a friend if I was. I don't know.
It's hard to switch.
And they're not.
this up.
It's not educational based. It's not dealing with the district. I'm not using my title, so I don't know. It's a really fine line. It's better to over communicate than under communicate.
Yeah, I think you could ask, are you asking me to represent the board, or are you just asking me to be a member of your committee?
That's a good clarifying question.
Speaking of Harriman, we do have that, quarterly meeting that they invite us to?
When is that? I have not been invited.
That education one that they?
Oh, that one. I thought you had meant meetings coming up. So that is an interesting one, because that one is probably exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I was talking about a different one, but
No,
that one they
this
formed
one.
because we're education. They want that link.
The city manager's there. John comes.
We don't-
Anthony's been there with us.
We don't always report that to the board.
We'll work with the language, and whether or not we change the policy will be a future decision.
Okay.
But
So right now, no one's broken policy, so
duly-
you're okay.
Duly noted, but I think that's a great discussion as to what goes into the policy and what doesn't.
But Brian, we do go to that one with our official because of our title.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an ongoing.
We're representing the school board in that
Yep.
meeting.
That's a big difference that I see.
Based on what the discussion from the summit, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said you can never remove your board hat.
Yeah.
Everybody always views you as a board member. Does it ever, you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the conversation.
It was the
surrounding-
vice president.
Yeah.
Mark?
The USBA. Yeah. Right.
I'm just wondering, how do
They
you,
also mentioned that.
I don't know if I agree with that statement, but
I get a lot more attention now that I'm a board member. So even when I'm trying to just be a
I
parent.
just think we all have lots of hats, and I
I'm
might not
signing-
be able to remove
I'm
that
signing
hat.
autographs all the time. People coming up to me,
Selfies.
Selfies.
No
with me.
selfies, please.
New Smiths by you, so.
Nota bene, we actually have just highlighted how involved you all are. So congratulations on being out there. I think it's great.
I do play the dad card a lot, though. I'm not here as a board member. I'm here as a dad.
Anything else on 114?
Oh, some of your kids.
All right, let's move on to GP 115, policy development. Everyone's so quiet. I'm gonna go then. I feel like A and C could be combined. I felt like they were kind of, like C was a little bit redundant, repeating what A was saying. And then in A, it said as well as, I wanted to add, so all district policies and regulations as well as board level policies shall be approved in an open meeting. I feel like they were going for, as the policies of the board. But we kind of switched that verbiage online to the board level policies.
That's good. I like that.
I do think a difference between A and C, and maybe it can be moved to A, is that the board formulates the policies. It's one of our responsibilities. It doesn't explicitly state that in A, so maybe we could include that.
I feel like they could be combined, but I just kind of wanted to highlight B, which reads, in accordance with its governance model, the board delegates to the superintendent the function of formulating administrative guidelines and district procedures designed to interpret and carry out district policies and board policies. The administrative guidelines and procedures will specify required actions and detail the arrangements under which the district will operate. These rules and procedures must be consistent with the policies adopted by the board. I feel like B highlights a concern or question that Mr. Barnett had one time when Dr. Godfrey brought us a policy or a new policy, and he was concerned that staff was writing this without our approval, but this is under the administrative guidelines where the superintendent has that function to direct staff to make the policy and bring it to us for approval. So I felt like B was good clarifying on that. Anything else?
I've noticed most of the time when we're dealing with policy changes or new policies, we have a great discussion in here in a study session setting. Lots of questions come out, lots of reasons for decisions come out in these study sessions, and then we take it, like this says, to the public meeting, and we just say, I. And the public who was generally in that meeting and not in this meeting, they don't have the benefit. They have the opportunity, of course. They can come sit in these meetings if they want to, but they don't have the benefit of maybe understanding, we spent 4 study sessions on this, or even just one. We spent 3 hours on this and we hashed it out and we're happy with it. I don't know if there's a way to address that, except maybe say that in the meeting. Maybe Nikki could say to the public, we spent 4 hours earlier discussing this and we all feel comfortable with it. Or, well, I don't know if we can say we all feel comfortable. We have to vote on it first, but it just seems to be kind of a disconnect between what we're doing and what the public is seeing us do. But any thoughts on that? Any ideas?
I feel like that's the best course of action, and she could even, or whoever is president at the time could mention, we discussed this in this board meeting at this date. You can go on YouTube and watch it, the timestamp, and watch our discussion and contact your local board member if you have questions on this. But I feel like just addressing it before we have that final approval is appropriate.
Yeah, sometimes I've sensed that the public doesn't understand or doesn't appreciate the amount of time that's gone into the decisions that we make and to the policies that we make. And
One way we could approach that is, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. As staff members, we could, if you chose to do this procedurally, do kind of a summary of when we've discussed this and what the major changes are. If we're talking about policy or something else, we could provide some sort of summary instead of merely saying we've discussed this at length in other settings.
Like on the agenda or in the GEM or JAM? Like, where would that be said?
We could do it on the agenda. We could just speak to it. Because sometimes we're asked to speak to what has happened to this point.
Oh, okay. Like when you're speaking.
I guess
about
I'm
it.
saying if we can help in any way, either on the agenda or in the meeting, we're glad to do that. Clarify what's happened to this point before we get to a decision.
I think that would add value if we're open to public comment to give a little context.
because especially on that point, because there have been times where 2 or 3 people have come to talk about it in public comment, because all these policy changes are open to public comment. And so they'll come and speak for 3 minutes, and we just sit there and listen, and then we vote. And there's no understanding that, yeah, we've gone through this. We've hashed this out as a board. I don't know if I like the visual there.
In my pre-board life, I remember coming to meetings and I thought this meeting was a closed session, that I couldn't come into this room or listen. It was the days before YouTube and stuff, but I remember being frustrated as just this uneducated patron of a lot of 7-0 votes, and never knowing that it took months to get to a 7-0 vote or a 6-1 vote, you know. And so I do like, I think partly doing our job, we need to educate people what we're doing. So I really like that idea of adding in maybe just a brief statement, like take the motion, and then just before anyone speaks, before you speak on this, just so you know, we've talked about this, because some of them we have talked a lot.
And I would say, don't wait for the president to do it. You have every right. If you sense the public is concerned, that's your moment to say, can I just share with everyone the history here?
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking as a president, there's a lot going on in your head when you're conducting a meeting, and you're going to forget to give a history when you're trying to think about everything else that has to go. And so I would plead with all board members to say, if you sense the public needs a little coaching, then coach them.
We can make
Don't
it
wait
a
for the
job
president.
duty of a vice president.
Second.
I think if staff is offering to come up with some context, whether it's shared by staff or shared by the president, then there's not that extra work that the president has to do. It's, here's some context for this policy, let's vote.
I feel like it's the role of the president to introduce agenda items, and at that point, they can either defer to staff for history or give a little bit of history in the meeting themselves.
You like the idea of having a brief
I do think that's a
history
part
there?
of conducting the agenda.
I agree that it ought to originate with the president, but if you would like us to provide that summary and just ask us to do it, we're glad to do it. But it does need to come from the president. Or you could choose to summarize on your own, or we could provide a summary for you, or whatever we can help in whatever form that takes.
Even if it's in board books, I think it'd be good. Just to remind us what I couldn't keep track of.
Or even just as part of that history, the question I asked earlier. So what is all this new language about high school charitable drives? And Anthony, you gave me a good summary. These are the things that we're seeing problems with, and this is why.
Yeah.
You know, that would be helpful, I think, for the public as well.
Okay. Is that everything?
Yep, that's all.
Great. So policy committee will take them from here and bring back recommended changes to the policies. All right, that brings us to our board and committee reports. I'm just going to let you kind of chime in any order as you report back on your committee assignments.
I'll go ahead and start. I was asked, we talked about this earlier in this meeting, but just to remind the board that next week we'll be taking some time to allow each board member to report back on their personal America 250 experience. For those of you who have something to share, plan on that next board meeting. And then as far as the facilities committee goes, next board meeting here toward the end of August, we'll be bringing back an unprioritized list of summer projects for 2027. I think, is finance going to have a budget for that? Okay, so we'll bring those two things next meeting, and then as a board we'll decide which summer projects we want to pursue. Also, in our next board meeting, facilities will present recommendations regarding declining enrollment trends in the West Jordan feeder system. We're hoping to have a positive discussion together. Mike and his team will be prepared with a presentation for us to review and discuss as well. I just wanted to give everyone a heads up on that. That's all I had.
Thank you. Lisa?
So the Salt Lake County Parks and Recreation Advisory Board has not met over the summer, and I don't know when our next meeting will be. And then also the Jordan Education Foundation, our annual meeting will be on the 3rd of September at Lone Peak Hospital, and I will bring back any pertinent information from that. And then the Licensed Employee Advisory Committee. I am curious if anybody has any thoughts on what kind of feedback we might want to get from our licensed employee representatives. One thing that I had thought about was what makes effective PLCs for our teachers. What are they seeing in their PLCs that are effective, and what the board can do to help encourage that more. I don't know. Any other?
I'd be interested in what they thought of this.
Well, I don't know if everyone went to that. Was that all the employees saw this presentation?
Maybe just distribute something like this, and part of the meeting is provide feedback. What do you think?
Yeah, or ask if they feel like they have enough training and support to use tech in their classrooms or other ways.
So solicit feedback on effective use of ed tech in the classroom and what the board could possibly do to support improvement in that area.
Recent media talking about how we don't give that, and it was interesting to see all the people jump in, saying we are doing a good job with that.
So did I state that correctly? Like, find out what
you did.
How well do they feel equipped in using technology in their classrooms?
And then if there are things the board could do to help them feel better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would be really interested in hearing both sides of that, both ways that they use technology to support student learning and to lighten the load of teachers. I do think that technology is a great tool. I do not think it is a great substitute for a great teacher. And striking that balance is a high priority.
Can I ask, it was one of the questions that I had during our discussion from Richard. Is there organization support, what Nikki just referenced, as far as enabling teachers behind the scenes as much as it is for direct instruction, or is it focused on direct instruction?
We have provided a lot of professional development opportunities for teachers to be trained on how to make their job easier through technology. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, is specific if ISTE focuses on that, or if that's just an independent district effort.
ISTE does focus on that.
They
as
do.
well.
Okay.
Training.
I'm
Thank
going to
you.
report about that in a minute.
Okay, so we can distill this even better, and as I try to figure out a date and time for the next LEAC meeting. So thank you for your feedback and input.
I can report because I can answer your
Go ahead,
question,
Darryl.
Board Member Woods. So I just was going to report on my trip to ISTE since this is the first opportunity I had to do that. And first of all, I just wanted to thank the board for that opportunity. I did bring a show and tell and brought the CEO, so hopefully that works this time. I did not arrange that, but I'm thankful for administration that did, and I saw great value in. And not only what you heard from Richard Coletta, but what you saw from ISTE. And this is an organization that I have a lot of respect in. I think you kind of get a glimpse of that today. One of the reasons why I really like it, and I could go class by class, but I like how it seems that Utah and the Jordan School District is leading the way in getting those tools that you're talking about. Years ago, before you guys were on the board, Bryce and I think we talked about getting things off teachers' plates so they can do their job. And someone asked me a while ago on my social media, what have you done? Because they don't see that we've done this. But these innovative coaches, I think we're calling them now, and these tools should be making a difference in teachers' time to be able to lift some of that low fruit that's taken a lot of time and giving them more time to be better, spend time on the things that matter most. A couple things that I just wanted to highlight. I won't give you an outline of every class, but I was able to go to one on Utah's digital dive. It's about how our digital learning supports are really helping and making a difference. It was led by the Alpine School District, but I always like to see what our neighbors are saying and doing and what we're doing as a state. And that was phenomenal. Like I said earlier, Richard's comments when he kind of married these two and gave this new name to the Instructional Society of, was the T again, Transforming Education. I think was awesome because it was I fell in love with the organization with technology, but it's really everything that they're doing. So the thing that I loved most was, and why I wish that you'll come and see, is that team, our learning and teaching team, is phenomenal at what they're doing. And they're phenomenal in their relationships with companies that are providing resources to us. They really listen to these people. So we always talk about the Jordan Digital Learning Big Six. So there's 6 platforms that we really emphasize we give the training for. And we met with each of these organizations and sat down with them, and we were able to bring our questions. So when teachers have concerns, for instance, we recently shut down the use of YouTube in our classrooms. And so is there an ability to turn on that in a Canvas course? Or so they were able to bring these questions. So the 6 are, by the way, Adobe, Canva, Nearpod, Google, School AI, and Canvas. And those are those digital 6. And it was just great to be able to watch in action our team interact with these and bring their concerns they're hearing from our teachers right to the source. And it was interesting to watch how quickly they responded it, and we'll get someone on that right away. And we have a great relationship with these providers, and they make a big difference in our classroom also. So anyways, if you want more information about that, contact their team. And it was really nice to have Carolyn Goff also with us. I thought that was a great addition, and getting to know these people. I used to think that maybe people will say that all the time, we don't need these district administrators. That's where some people say our fat is, our district administrators, but these are our supports that make sure that teachers have training and our education have training and are able to troubleshoot whether or not it's a system problem, whether or not it's a user problem or whatever. This team is so valuable, I think. I used to be a trainer, and whenever we looked for budget cuts, we were the first department they looked. And we don't do much. We just hire everyone and train everyone and monitor their success and let people go. But some people don't think that those support staffs are so important. So I just really love this team, and I love what we do there. One and more that we work with is a digital citizenship grant. We're working with this group, and it was also great to have. It was a long discussion and this was less of a presentation, more of a discussion, and to see what our district's doing to really make sure that we're not only using these, but it's targeted, it's result. We're looking for certain results. We're trying to support our teachers, and so thank you for letting me go, and please come with me next year if you'll let me go again. I'll bring you as a show and tell the next time. So. Anyways, it's pretty impactful for my life and my professional development as a board member. So thank you.
Any other board reports or committee reports?
Yes, I've got a couple of reports and then a comment. So for government relations, we'll be ramping up here soon. Thanks to Dr. Anderson for coordinating some upcoming meetings with legislators. We look forward to partnering with them ahead of the next session that'll start in January. We appreciate our relationships with them and their willingness to hear us out and consult with us on their proposed bills. For GIAC, I do have lapel pins for board members if you want to pass these around for our Jordan Education Access Committee. We've got a couple of events coming up that I want to make those listening aware of, as well as board members. So we have our Fall Family Fair on Monday, August 31st from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Viridian in West Jordan. So this event
should make it from 4 to 5. Fall Family Fair from 4 to 5.
That would be clever. It's an event that is for all students in the district and their families. It's going to be a time to learn about the district and also a bunch of community resources. Now, the hook, if that's not enough, is that you can win prizes and play games. And, drum roll, the Superintendents of Rock will also be performing.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
The Viridian in West Jordan.
Yeah,
Same one.
And we have a couple of songs that are less than 50 years old that we'll be playing, so it is pretty exciting. It's a big moment for us.
What time? Do you know what time you're going on?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Not
Well,
for sure.
Come early so you don't miss it. So grateful to that committee and LCS for all of the efforts in planning
It's
that
always
event.
great. They do a good job.
Yeah, they do. And then a save the date, I'll have more information for you later, but on September 30th is the Native American Fall Community Night as well as Orange Shirt Day. And that day represents just reminding us that every child matters.
What date is that?
September 30th.
That's Sunday night.
Ooh. Let me double check my date. I'm going to have to maybe get back to you so I don't take up
maybe
too
I'm
much
looking
time
at
looking.
September, October together.
September
I was looking at
30th is a
August.
Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
I had
Thank
my
you.
August calendar and it said
Okay.
September. So.
It's great.
This was making sure you're on your toes.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. As far as the statement I'd like to make, I'm mostly going to read it just so that I can be succinct. One of my roles as a board member is to consider the competing interests, range of values, and a variety of perspectives in our community. And as I weigh all of these factors, it becomes my responsibility as a board member to choose the action I will take. I appreciate the insight, expertise, and experience of others as I fulfill my role on the board. As the school year is about to begin, I want to comment on the topic of sensitive materials in our schools. I have personally been involved in the review of a few books that have been appealed to the Board of Education since I began in this role a year and a half ago. I have been communicating with district leadership, and I am reassured by the steps that have been taken by leadership and the designated committees. We respond timely and thoroughly to every objection and request for reconsideration. We have procedures in place that are supported by law, consider due process, and enable our teacher librarians to continue to utilize their professional skills in curating a wide variety of literature for the benefit of our students without fear of harassment. I believe in following the law and value the law's guidance and protection in these matters. And I am sincerely grateful for the collaboration with district leaders and the community in this important, ongoing, and significant effort.
Thank you, Suzanne.
So I will report on regional PTA. They did have a brief meeting for the beginning of the year. It was more of a training for their new council presidents. But I'll be reporting back on those meetings as they become more frequent during the school year. Concerning JPAC, I feel like technology is what we're talking about. And so I was thinking about talking to the SEC chairs about what technology we do use, the big six, maybe having Mr. Cavelli come and talk to the parents about how we use technology, how we try to train teachers on the technology. But I'm wondering how beneficial that would be, because come December, the state board is supposed to have kind of their, what are they called?
Model policy.
Their model policy out. So would that be too early to talk to our parents about technology, or would it kind of be a nice segue into what we might be rolling out the next, like in the spring and summer, once we have to get our policies in alignment?
I think there are misunderstandings even among district employees about what the new law means and what it doesn't mean, and so it might not be our only discussion, but even if it's only a part of the discussion, I think it's valuable to say, this is what we're working on. We can also say, this is how we've eliminated YouTube now. And there's a lot of progress we've made that we could talk about. You can track the websites that your children have been on. YouTube is no longer something we're accessing. We're downloading videos separate from YouTube. I think there are, talking about the fact that a model policy is coming out in December, and that you have talked with Richard Collada and we had trainings going on. I think there are things to talk about generally, but you attend those meetings. So.
Yeah, and I think giving it to the school community council chairs, that information is valuable for them to then bring back to their school community council. Oftentimes they end up being the sounding board to the ombuds for their schools, and giving them that information that's accurate and recent, timely is all would be great.
Okay. Do you think fall then would be okay to?
Yeah, probably end of
And
September.
I would add, I think it is a nice approach when we talk to stakeholders ahead of policy writing. We receive their feedback, concerns, ideas before we're presenting what we think. And so I think I love everything that was said, but I think this is also a great opportunity to help us shape our own policy once we've received that model policy from USBE.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. Something that I had learned from Mr. Collada's talk this morning. Actually, it was just off to the side. I was talking to him because he had met with Superintendent Molly Hart before his speech this morning. But about the model policy we're waiting for the state to come down with, and how we can what was the word? How to kind of implement that, right? So if we're going to be limited by the law in the screen time for kids, how can we make that the best quality screen time that they are allowed? And so getting input from parents, I think, would be great too. You guys feel good about that topic for JPAC?
And to your earlier question about time, typically it's in October before they start meeting after they've had their elections and things. And in the past, the earliest we've met was August 13th.
August?
Or sorry, it's October 13th.
Okay.
I'm sorry, October 13th. And we did meet again on October 18th and October 30th.
Okay, yeah. I seem to remember kind of late-ish October, just so they've got their elections and everything finished. So great. I will get with you then on a date for later.
Thank you, Erin. Anyone else? Nikki, any report from you?
Give a little bit of a preview. USBA is meeting on Friday, but on the agenda will be, as you know, Julie Jackson has essentially won her seat in the House. She does not have an opponent, and she won her primary. So she is going to be resigning her seat at this meeting. And the way it will work is the executive committee will be appointing, the board of directors will be appointing someone to her seat. And that will only be relevant until the January meeting, where the full body will have an opportunity to vote on and elect a new president. So kind of different to not have a president-elect become the next president. So I will report back on that, but that is what's coming down the pipe. And then I just wanted to comment on a couple of professional development opportunities that I've had the opportunity to attend. I went to the special education opening, and it was such a treat to be there. My mind has referenced back to the keynote and to Dr. Godfrey's speeches there several times since. It was impactful. And I am so excited for the new leadership in that department. And then, of course, the administrative conference is always just a reassuring moment to say we have the right people leading in our schools, and what a great opportunity to rub shoulders with that caliber of people. So thank you, Dr. Godfrey. I know the last 2 weeks have probably been chaos for you, but man, you don't let it show on top.
Thank you, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, Nikki. Anyone else? Superintendent, anything you want to add before we end?
I'll just echo what President George said. I appreciate all those who have made the teacher launch, the professional development day today, the special education conference, the 2 days of administrative leadership conference from last week. I'll go into more detail. The Bees game we did for all employees last week. There's a lot of ramping up that happens in these 2 weeks, and it's gone very, very well because of a lot of hard work and a lot of speakers that are very complimentary of the district, national speakers who are willing to come back and to come in because of the impact they see that it has when they get to meet with our teachers. So thanks to everyone, and thanks to the board for supporting all these activities.
Anthony, can I piggyback on too? You reminded me that we had the opportunity to attend Show Up for Teachers together. And at that meeting, the governor mentioned a reading day across America where he is encouraging everyone to have some sort of special acknowledgement of reading. Unfortunately, the day that was chosen is a day that we are out of school. I am interested in observing that as a district, and I am curious if we already have plans in work or if that's something that staff would like the board to try to help set up?
We haven't set anything up yet. It's in early October. And yes, it's a Friday that we're out of school. But if we know the board is particularly interested in our making an effort on that, then it helps to know that, and we can come back with any needs we have from you.
Are other board members interested?
I'm interested.
Me too.
I'd be interested.
Okay, sounds like a majority would like to do something. It's a bummer that we're not in school on the official date, but I think we can understand the intention behind this.
I wish we were, but yes, we'll put something together.
Thank you, Superintendent. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I would like to just go back over the agenda and make sure we are all on the same page in terms of assignments that were given. No assignment was given for item A. Item B, Daryl, you are next on the professional learning moment, if you'll be prepared for that. In regards to AA 445, Brian, you took the assignment to ponder whether or not we add a frequency of review, and we'll leave that to you if you want to work with administration to work that in. John, you took the assignment to make a few policy edits, mainly to the scope, and bring that back. And Superintendent, we gave you an assignment to send a reminder to parents about what's available to them in terms of monitoring their students' use a digital footprint. Item D for the reporting of Utah code and the participation in athletes. Superintendent, if you'll remind Brian Veazey that he took an assignment to send the modified report to all board members.
Okay, thank you.
Item E, Aaron, you took the assignment to work with the regional PTAs on whether or not we revise section B of the elementary section. And Anthony, you were going to make some modifications to the memory book and a couple other edits.
Yes, thank you.
Item F, Policy Committee took the assignment to update and to hear your advisement and come back with recommendations. Are there any other assignments that were given that we need to review?
Can I bring up a past one? We've talked about the board report that comes out from us. Have we sent bulletin? Have we sent one? Have we not?
We sent one recently, and we haven't really talked about the next one.
I'm not sure if I got the last one then. I haven't seen one in a couple years.
It was
been a while.
Months ago.
I thought we sent one in the springtime.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a few months ago.
We sent one at graduation time.
Yeah.
Oh, is it graduation? Okay. I was just wondering when the last one was.
Okay, that's all the assignments. Thank you for coming. We appreciate everyone that was online. We do have one closed session item. So before we close, I will take a motion to go into closed session. And following that, at the end of our closed session agenda, we will adjourn.
I move that we go into closed session for character and competence of individuals, property, potential litigation, negotiations, and security.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Ms. Barrow and a second by Mr. Robinson to go into closed session. When I call your name, give me your vote on that. Brother or Miss Brother, sorry. You're my brother. You be my brother anytime, Brian. Brian?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Sister Wood?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And Nikki?
Yes.
And Brother Bryce is a yes as well. So we will go into a closed session and we stand adjourned. Thank you for coming, and we hope you have a wonderful beginning to the new school year.